Wow, your forehead's like huge, Prime. I never noticed it until you got your head like right there at the camera. Look at that thing. It's huge.
We will start with a good friend and illustrious mod, Polar's World. Polar's World, thank you for being here. Dude, you know I'm always happy to have you around. You were part of the Primetime Morale and you got really far, I thought. Yeah, you were crushing it, buddy. But then you ran up to the wall that was Bastiat. How you doing, Polar?
I'm doing pretty good. Had a nice weekend. After I think coming in fourth place in the primetime rail, I did some thinking. What can I do to win potentially next time? But everyone falls somewhere. So maybe I can redeem myself and get some practice here. Okay, maybe next time I can be stream queen.
Okay, all right, thanks so much. And we have the actual stream queen. His name is Bastiat. Bastiat, thank you for coming through. Really appreciate you stopping by. You're getting back in the swing of things and you're spending time with my community. It's very much appreciated. Everyone here is always happy to have you.
Hey, thanks for the invite. It's a lot of fun. Prime is a scholar and gentleman, and I appreciate the invite. Couldn't think of a better way to spend my Monday night than with this wonderful crew of folks. And I think tonight's gonna be fun.
Okay, all right. Moving on, we have a VIP. We have an all-star MVP. His name is Connor. Connor, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you stopping by once again. We need to count how many times in a row you've been here.
Yeah. But no, my sincere pleasure. I'm actually really happy to be called that in the presence of such illustrious folks. We do have a really killer fucking lineup tonight. I'm super excited to be here. No, man, thank you. Anytime that I get to debate politics is a great fucking night. And if you're interested in me, I consider myself center right. I'm a YouTuber. I run a channel named Counterpoints. You can find me on Twitter at ConnorPoints, CONORPOINTS, CONORPOINTS. And I have a very recent video that's a Warhammer 40,000 reaction that is doing extremely well. So if you're a nerd, you love sci-fi, you love violence, you love history, then I have a product that you should check out.
Okay, thanks so much. Next, we will go to Vadim. Vadim, thank you for coming back. Once again, you've been here quite a few times, and we've always appreciate you being around. How you doing, Vadim?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, and I'm wishing that I had changed my my logo because I've been incredibly lazy and I haven't changed it from Creationist Cat to Hey It's Vadim. I run a channel called it's now called Hey It's Vadim. For years it was Creationist Cat, and I do video essays. I'm kind of pretty lefty-ish. I would say that my stuff is kind of I don't know, sort of a cross between political edutainment through a sort of Adult Swim type lens. And I'm just glad to be here. Thank you, Prime. I'm glad to be hanging out with both Polar and Bastiat once again, and my friend LSP. And I'm also really looking forward to the irreverent prop comedy conservative stylings of Mr. Phil Coe, or Coe. I'm sorry, I may be mispronouncing your name. I apologize for that.
I'm just gonna say, if you think he's comedy, you are in for a surprise. This guy ain't joking. He's a real deal. All right.
Oh, by the way, just real quick, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
This is shill time. I have a video right now that is recently up that I spent over 2 months on called Tim Pool Localypse, the Lost Tim Pool tapes. Literally, it's the mother of all Tim Pool takedowns. There's going to be a sequel to that, and as a matter of fact, Mr. Counterpoints helped me out a little bit with some of the information that's going to be in part 2. So yeah, that's on YouTube. If you guys familiar with that site, go there now and subscribe to me, or you're a loser.
And if you have a direct link, you could throw on my Twitch chat so people can get to that video. Yeah,
I will do that. I will do just that right now.
Please, everyone, I want you to be able to advertise on my platform. Next, we will go to Doobie. Doobie, thank you for being here. Doobie, thanks for in general livening up my panels the way you usually do. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing very well. I am Doobie, for those of you who don't know me. I help run Discord's best and biggest Sigma super straight debate bro server, the politics server. You can get there by using the link discord.gg/politics. I think almost everybody on the panel tonight is really intelligent and interesting. Eris is here, so I can't say everyone, but almost everyone is pretty cool. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I'm happy I'm here.
Okay, thanks so much. Shout across the bow to the wonderful Eris who helps me put together our Amazon Lily roundtable, which we have tomorrow, Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. Eris, please don't take that line down from Doobie. Please roast him for all of us, please.
Yeah, if there's someone that can roast Doobie, it's gonna be me. I do plan on having a trial against Doobie at some point, where we can all roast him. And I'm tired of being associated with him just because we're both VTubers, right? It's ruining my reputation. I'm not happy about it. Right, but anyways, hi, I'm Eris. I am a monarchist and having an existential crisis right now after the Meghan and Harry interview last night. So please be kind to me. It's an emotional period for me. And I am a history grad student. I like bringing a historical perspective to modern issues. I piss off left-wingers and right-wingers, and since I love based ideas, whatever category they're in. And you can follow me on Twitch, where you'll see me say things that are inevitably going to get me canceled. I also run Calliopean Club, which is Discord's primarily education community, so you should definitely join that too. And I'm super excited to be here. Thanks, Prime, for having me.
Absolutely. I didn't realize that you were streaming on Twitch.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm starting this week. So.
Oh, fantastic.
Nice. Very cool.
If you type in my chat at some point, then I can. Oh no, you already did. Oh yeah, I'll shout you out right there. But we'll shout you out, of course. Everyone else at the end. Yeah, sure. Was not aware of that. I'm definitely gonna go follow you later on. Next. And then one other thing. You're a monarchist? Like, are you actually a monarchist?
Yeah, unironic.
Yeah. Unironic.
Oh, this is something we're gonna have to fight about.
I told you, I'm getting canceled right now.
It would be fun to hear about.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
My oh my.
You might have to.
Well, because it would just be interesting because I'll tell you why later.
Yeah. We might.
Because she believes in birthright rule. That's why it's interesting.
We might have.
If you
It's
like
a little
Code,
weird.
Go ahead.
all I'm saying is, if you're a fan of Code Geass and you think Lelouch should be a great ruler, then you're also a monarchist. So, if Eris wants to make that point, yeah, maybe that's my position as well.
Okay.
Well, you guys can't deny that the aesthetics are really cool.
Don't care. Nope, I'm gonna disagree. All right.
Okay, Prime, sign me up for a monarchist debate right now.
Oh my God, yes. We're gonna. We have to think about how to do this, but we're gonna do this.
Yeah, you should do like an informal survey and see what people think about it, and we can decide whether that would be a good topic, because I think that would be very interesting.
Absolutely. Now, moving on.
If you had at least one other person to like back her up, right? I'm willing to swing whichever way if need be. I don't want it to be a circular, firing squad on Eris here. Right?
You're okay. All right. It's good to know. All right.
Hopefully somebody is genuinely also into it. Sorry to interrupt you.
He is open to try new things. Boss Chat is up for anything. He wants the Twitch chat to know. But thanks so
Kind of left myself open for that one.
Let's go. LSP. Thank you for coming back, especially after being simply humiliated last time on Primetime Morale. Here you are. Being a fantastic sport. Thank you for coming back. We always appreciate you having you here.
Hi.
Indeed. Great. Moving on. Now, we have KOE. KOE, thank you. You're a new person here. We appreciate you stopping by to this channel. Please, you did it already before, but one more time. Tell people all about yourself.
Thank you. The man so nice himself twice. Folks, thank you one and all for being here at the Prime K's panel so we can get into all of and topic of the day. I am the devilishly handsome outlaw himself, your king of extreme, Phil KOE, KOE Nation on Twitch and YouTube, and also on Thirsty Thursdays at Big Buck Empire, Facebook, and all of the great platforms that you can find me for all of your KOE content. I am a farmer out in the middle of Nebraska. I am just God's country conservative. I'm also the internet's leading shill for big peace. And so I am so happy to be here with all of you to discuss the topics of the day. And we're right into it. But folks, before you do that, be sure to face panel. What are you doing? You know it's the right thing to do. Best thing on the internet today. And with that, I yield back to all you beautiful people.
Okay. So you're coming in a little jittery. I'm gonna try changing the server region for Discord. There's gonna be a slight break. But I'm gonna try changing the server region. See if that'll help. So let's try US West. Hopefully everyone else doesn't get fucked. Save changes. Okay. Hey, Kaylee, try talking again, just a little bit.
How are we doing, you beautiful people? Everyone out in internet land, can you hear? Nation, YouTube, Twitch, it's the place where you can get KOE, man.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Did anybody hear any of that beautiful music?
We did hear it.
Yeah, we heard you. That's
we
for sure.
definitely heard you. But okay, thank you so much. We'll just have to roll with that. Okay. So, were you going to say something else, Bastia?
You don't have any interest in maybe a mayoral candidacy, for the city of Omaha, do you? Because recently, some folks were disappointed by the way one of them turned out, and I think there are a lot of extremely online folks who might be re-energized by the prospect.
Okay.
I might consider such a low office, but in
Okay. All right. I'm gonna stop.
2024, I have already my candidacy for the presidency of the United States of America. So,
see, Bastia, he's too beautiful to just squander on Omaha.
Okay, all right. Let's jump into it. So
I must share my beauty with the world.
Topic one. Again, thank you everyone for being here. But topic one, the estate that owns Dr. Seuss's books has decided to stop publishing 6 of them due to perceived racial bias. The backlash to this has been swift, with people decrying this as censorship and oversensitivity. Does this act count as censorship? Was it a reasonable action to take? If schools and localities decide to take further action, such as banning the books, would that be reasonable? If not, what other options are available? And is the backlash against the publication decision simply retaliation to what's perceived as cancel culture? Okay, we'll have 1 minute openings from each of you. All right, we'll start with our man Polar.
Depending on what you mean by canceling, it doesn't even seem like it was a societal thing. If it was this estate that just chose to stop producing these specific books, I think schools have the complete right. Like, I think they can I think they're more than qualified to be able to determine that, like, they don't want to display some of these books to the kids. There are some pretty bad things in some Dr. Seuss books, some like racially kind of yikes things in there. So if a school just feels if it's like appropriate, they just don't want to like show that to their kids, and as a result, like maybe demonstrate some of those messages for their kids, I think that's completely fine. Depending on, like, and going back to canceling, if it's canceling societally, then like if the state already did it, then I mean, like, but if you consider canceling just taking like that piece of literature away and like just not letting it engage in society as much anymore, then sure. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that definition of canceling that.
Okay, fair enough. Bastiat.
Yeah, I don't know how you could say that he was, or that those works were canceled, given that, it was a decision by the state to stop publishing some of them. But that said, I feel like, it would be one thing, I guess, if somebody was trying to make the argument that all the Dr. Seuss materials are bad. But, I mean, certainly some of them, some of the materials that we've seen, in some of the books are, kind of yikes in retrospect. And, it's understandable that people want to cut that out of the material that they showed their children. That being said, I don't think Dr. Seuss generally is going anywhere. I don't think this is an attempt to cancel Dr. Seuss completely. And, it just seems like standards kind of evolve over time. And, maybe what people are, appropriate or not appropriate, people are comfortable letting slide in one era, they don't really want to let go in another. I would also say that there's probably a difference between trying to retract materials that are racially challenging, but which have some educational value, maybe like a book like, say, Huckleberry Finn, and just a really yikes depiction of an ethnic minority that has no redeeming educational value to it at all. That I think you can make some distinctions there too. So it seems like it was a pretty reasonable decision, and I don't know how you could call it any kind of cancellation given that it was self-imposed.
Okay. LSP, we can hear you typing, so just thank you. Counterpoints.
Sorry, my bad.
No problem.
This is a capitalist plot to sell more Dr. Seuss books to conservatives. Any conservative that is actually outraged by this, I think, needs to fucking take an IQ test and probably, probably have their organs removed. So basically it's goddamn, like this is some of the dumbest shit in the fucking world. 6 books were fucking stopped from being published. They're not even being widely author. This is just goddamn, like this fucking crybaby bullshit makes me ashamed to claim a fucking.
Sure. You're coming in and out. However, hold on, I'm gonna change the thing again. To maybe Central. See what happens there. All right.
But no, don't do it. Don't do it. I'm gonna stop doing something on my end.
Oh, okay. All right.
Give me a second.
Okay.
And it was probably for the best that I didn't come in as well. So basically, this makes me ashamed to be on the right.
Understood. Gotcha. Vadim.
Well, okay. About 4 years ago, I did a sweep of my channel, which is at the time Creationist Cat. It's now, hey, it's Vadim. I decided that although not egregiously harmful, I didn't stand by certain videos that in a few cases were maybe potentially harmful in ways that I didn't grasp when I first made them. And I don't think anyone here can convince me that I canceled myself. I see virtually no meaningful distinction between my choice as the proprietor of the Creationist Cat estate and Dr. Seuss's decision to take down its own books off the market. And I don't know. I mean, I just feel compelled to say, in the past week, I've heard not only constant assertions that the Dr. Seuss thing is cancel culture, but fucking Potato Head, or the artist formerly known as Mr. Potato Head, the Equality Act, that was a good one, like for real. And and I've seen COVID masks. People say COVID masks are cancel culture. So, when I see people like Donald Trump at CPAC, whose neck is emanating so much fucking sweat that if you found a proper way to filter it, you could probably solve the Flint water crisis. When I see him whining about cancel culture, Donald Trump, of all people, a man who said that Edward Snowden should be shot, people should be imprisoned for flag burning, sued Bill Maher over a fucking joke, attempted multiple times to stop the printing of books critical of him. I could go on for paragraphs. When I see dumb shit like that echoed by countless conservatives, like zombies thirsting for brains, I just have to make a prognosis, which is that cancel culture in general, not saying that maybe there isn't some valid form of it on the internets, but for the most part, it's just a parasitic brain worm that is infecting the right now. It's all they have. They don't have much to bitch about. Yes, I'm Mr. Kais. You know what? I cede my time. Thank you very much. Sorry, I get a little rattled about this issue.
Thank you so much for being hype here, buddy. Really appreciate it. Next, we have apparently King Doobie. Doobie, what's your opinion on this?
So it doesn't seem like there was a massive clamor from Democrats or leftists to stop publishing the books prior to the decision being made by the state. So this seems like a lot of manufactured hysteria, a lot like the yearly war on Christmas that we get from the Republican Party. And I think what's surprising to me is we just got through, a couple years of BLM protests, right? Massive protests, the largest protests I think this country's ever seen, right? And at the end of all that, right, and then losing the presidency, the Republican Party has decided to attach themselves to racist caricatures of Asians and Black people. Like, how does that make any sense tactically? It just seems like a brain dead thing to do. Just kind of making themselves known as the party that's gonna fight for your right to have racist caricatures in a book. It seems stupid. I don't know why they would do this, and yeah, it's just mind-boggling.
Okay, thanks so much. Next, let's go to Eris.
Hey, so okay, I don't think it's honest to say that it's not canceling. Sure, it was self-imposed, but we do live in a culture that loves canceling and creates like a positive PR kind of moment, which is what was touched on by Counterpoints. And it creates profit for corporations when they come out with these kinds of statements. So there is like an incentive structure in a capitalist society to, you know, cancel themselves, so to say. But I don't like that they're not publishing it. However, I think it's totally fair to say, okay, here is this piece of literature. It was fine for, it's okay for its time, but there's some problematic things, and we don't want to teach those values to especially really young kids. So I think it's totally fair to say, like in schools, like let's not teach that. As long as I don't mind giving controversial stuff to, to students, but they need to be at an age where they can handle that within the context. And the level that in which you read something like Dr. Seuss, when you see something like there's some really racist things in there against like Asians, and that's gonna really create like a permanent effect on a kid. So I think it's fair to not teach that shit in schools.
LSP.
Yeah, sorry. Keep. Oh shoot. See, Prime, you get me jacking with my fucking mic. Does this act count as censorship? In the sense that it's self-censorship, I guess you could say, because it's his estate refusing to publish some. I mean, I'm an artist. If I took down one of my videos, am I being censored? Is it self-censorship? It seems like a weird thing. Was it a reasonable action to take? I mean, I guess. That's up to his estate to decide. Who cares? If schools and localities decide to take further actions, such as banning books, would that be reasonable? No. Like, why would? I mean, it's basically book burning. No, that wouldn't be reasonable. The reasonable reaction to take is the conservative meme. You got to make like a fash wave meme with like a Dr. Seuss character, and you have to have like that digital font text that says "Remember what they took from you," to really drive home that this is like a serious thing, a serious culture war issue that we need to bleed over and cry over. If not, what other options are available? The internet. Just go read it. Like, it's not like it's been wiped off the face of the earth. Is the backlash against the publication decision a simply retaliation of what's perceived as cancel culture? I don't know. I'm sorry. This is like a silly. The controversy around this is the silliest thing to me.
Okay, thank you. KOE. And LSP, your mic quality has like changed drastically. I don't know what you did, but like it changed drastically.
A good thing or a bad thing?
Bad.
God damn it.
I don't know what happened. But while you work on that, KOE.
Well, now we switch over to the sweet summer sounds that are my voice. Now, the thing that I've kind of been keeping in mind with this is, as long as there's some copies available to the general public so some people can at least get context from this work, that's fine. If schools want to display it or not, that's their own decision. I don't have any problem with what they want to do in that regard. I do think that, again, just like even bad work need to be preserved for the sake of giving people and future generations context. I do think that at the very least, there should be some sort of disclaimer for this, that this is some less than helpful material, but for historical context, this is how it was presented originally. So it's, in terms of, was it canceling and censorship? Sort of in a way, but at the same time, it was done by their own volition. So it's a very interesting point. Now, I'm always a little nervous because whenever there was information that was available to you on Monday, and then on Tuesday there is no that information is no longer available to you, there's always something that seems just kind of wrong about that. But I know that's a very hard topic, because are we canceling? Are we not canceling? It's the Dr. Seuss estate. Dr. Seuss isn't alive to defend himself, so it's a really sticky issue. And I am looking forward to seeing what our perspectives are, and I yield back to all of you beautiful people.
So, we'll jump into this, but LSP, I actually wanted to focus on something you said there, right? Like, would it not be reasonable to ban this if a locality didn't want books? Like a school library, basically, right? Like a school library or something like that. Did not want that in there. Would that not be reasonable to just get rid of those?
If a school library doesn't, we're talking Dr. Seuss. Like, we're not talking like Siege, right? Like, I don't know. This feels like a weird reaction. I guess if the argument is that there's some, there's some racially problematic subject matter in there. I mean, what can't you find in a school library that won't also contain the same things? You can go up and down a shelf. And I don't think like shielding racism from kids is going to hide the fact that racism exists from them.
Yeah, that's an
in fact, it
appeal to
seems kinda
futility
silly to
fantasy,
do.
though.
Libraries
Like fallacy.
Well, I mean, what would the point of doing that be except to hide it? Like,
libraries.
Okay, but I
take
guarantee you, if you go
books
through
out
like
of
the children's
circulation
books,
all
they're
the
not.
time.
Guarantee if you go through like the children's books, especially for really young kids, the kind of like the age group that reads something like Dr. Seuss, the stuff there is not going to be problematic. It's going to be very non-controversial, right? Because children around that age are very impressionable. There have been studies that have demonstrated that they do not know the difference between fantasy and reality at that age. So it's like, yeah. So I don't agree with LSP that just because like, you know, there's say like To Kill a Mockingbird that's gonna have some controversial shit in there. That's those kinds of books are not for this age group that Dr. Seuss is. So when like a little kid opens like Dr. Seuss and they see like an Asian person being portrayed that way, that's gonna leave an imprint very intensely.
Okay.
Well,
Libraries take books out of circulation all the time, or rather out of their roster. I mean, that's why there's fucking bargain bins at nearly every library, just because of the fact that they are choosing to remove a book. And honestly, I don't think that is my preferred course of action.
There are different reasons for removing them, though.
You know, I mean, certain libraries have more room. They have different goals. You know, so a lot of libraries right now are going to put it in the adult section, or they're going to put it in a section that is meant for books that, you know, have some sort of warning or some sort of adult, you know, it's known that there's some sort of, I don't know, potentially harmful information. I mean, things like Mein Kampf and stuff like that you can find in some libraries, and they're usually in sections such as that. So I don't know if all I'm saying is that if a library chooses to do this, I don't think that it's them kind of, I don't think it's the equivalent of burning books. It's just them deciding, yeah, you know, maybe we'll honor this. Maybe there is something that we as a library do not want to really put out there, and there are going to be libraries that will.
Can I just say fuck Dr. Seuss? Like,
yeah,
some of these books are like 7 years old, 100 years old, almost nearly 100 years old. Why do we give a fuck about them?
Well, more importantly, they're just like, they're not good. Like, The Cat in the Hat is the story of an adult cat playing with children. Like, the worst one that I've seen so far is the Lorax, where they try and spin this message that economic development is bad for the environment, and we all need to join hands and try and it's garbage. So yeah, Dr. Seuss, yeah, not a big fan.
Honestly, if anyone is a fan, right? If anyone is actually a fan,
Rabble.
If anyone is actually a fan of Dr. Seuss, I would say that they should be outraged by the Mike Myers film, because that shit was terrifying.
Okay, what about the Disney route, though? Because I think Eris kind of touched on this a little bit, where it was like, I'm not saying, I don't give a fuck if Dr. Seuss continues to produce these like 6 books out of his like 100-book library. But what about the Disney route, where you basically just put a disclaimer at the beginning of it, and you just say, hey, listen, you know, these stereotypes were kind of, you know, drawn at a time when it was deemed socially acceptable. It's no longer socially acceptable. And like, but I also, I want to concede Eris's point, because she was basically saying, like, even if you read that to a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, they're not going to understand racist stereotypes versus artist disclaimer versus whatever. So I mean, really, I think we should be talking about Lola Bunny. I mean, let's be real.
For shit like that, it's up to the parents to teach their children.
What did you just say about Lola Bunny?
How big are we going to let the
I was saying that's the real topic of
cancellation. Yeah, it is. I grew up. How big is the different Lola Bunny, and I think it's disgusting that she's been taken from us.
Yeah. First, Tifa,
remember what they took from you, Bastian.
Yeah, first, I remember. All right, I was a kid. All right, and You know, I
I
just
whipped it to a bunny. God damn it! I want that bunny back.
Lola,
I think
grew
I could
up with
speak
Lola Bunny.
to what Counterpoint said. Is that okay? Can I?
Before you do
Could I
that, I
jump
want to
in?
meme for a second. Yes. First, they took away Tifa from Final Fantasy VII, right? Reduced boobs there. Also, in Mortal Kombat, all of a sudden, no one's fighting in bikinis anymore. I don't know how that doesn't make sense. All right. Then now they've come for Lola Bunny, and just the
Yeah,
worst.
I mean, life's tough enough for furries. I mean, it's hard out there being a
True.
furry. You know, I mean, to say nothing of the way
Hey,
people
wait,
treat you.
That's a
Why don't
fair
you just
point.
stop
It's
it?
a minority
Like,
representation
if-
issue,
You
right?
take the representation just like that.
If I may,
Whoa.
And
I said this the other day on one of my side shows that regardless of which side you come down on this topic, I'm sorry, but Lola Bunny is the weirdest hill to fight and die on. Like, I'm so,
No, I
it's just like one of
disagree.
those, like,
Hey,
huh, we're
watching-
getting
I'm
this
sorry.
worked up over fictional characters.
Listen, watching internet fascists fight for like furry degenerate art is one of the best internet memes I have ever seen. Return to tradition behind Lola Bunny's ass is one of the funniest fucking things
There
I've
is.
ever seen.
there is a seriously strange subculture of the subculture that is furries, that
We're
is
losing our
fascist
country.
furs. No, there is a little fascist fur subculture out there, and it's worth, you know. I mean, I wouldn't tell you to Google it and drop the results in chat or anything, but you know,
Hey, you gotta
Guys, I have an important question. This is
Please,
I
Vadim.
need to know this. I need to know this. I mean, first of all, I'll say Lola Bunny in a sports bra, it's destroying my childhood. But I need to know, just for the practicality of this hangout, because of the fact that we're broadcasting from Discord, does holding my hand up, like, can you see it? Is that going to like is that an effective means, or do I just have to like talk through people in order to get hurt?
You got to dab if you want to talk.
Yes, go ahead. Wait, go ahead. It's fine.
Okay.
Creating us with
Well,
the
I
hand wave,
did,
man.
I
You
did,
got
I
us
did
all.
want to speak to what Counterpoint said. Okay, so Counterpoints, in terms of, I think normally that is the kind of practical way to go, to put some sort of warning in the beginning of a book. But I think the reason why it's a problem with Dr. Seuss books is because of the fact that often you'll get people who just buy a stack of them off the internet for baby showers and stuff like that. And kids, I mean, sometimes it will be the very first things that books that kids will open up and flip through. And children can, and I think that Eris was sort of speaking to this earlier, children, I think, can sort of process things on an emotional level. They can see certain depictions of themselves that look really humiliating, and they can sort of understand that it's humiliating. And then at the same time, they won't be able to completely process it, and they won't be able to read the opening that that is in the book. And not all parents are either mindful enough or are aware, or a good parents to read through their children's books and kind of see what's inside them. Therefore, I understand the Dr. Seuss not going that route.
I'm like 99% sure I'm the only Mexican in here, so I'm just gonna ask, like, is Speedy Gonzalez gonna get the same treatment? Like, should I not?
Yes, he's
hope
gonna
not.
have at least a Disney label. He's at least gonna have a Disney label for sure.
That's the
I don't know,
difference.
something that I
He's
want to
Warner
say
Brothers.
though,
He's
like
Warner
I'm
Brothers, so
noticing.
go ahead.
I'm noticing a lot in chat, like people are saying, why are we talking about Dr. Seuss? It's so unimportant. And like, doobies, that's like, I guess the populist thing to say, like, oh, like we shouldn't be talking about this. This is really dumb. All right. But I think that that's a really like shallow way to be looking at it. Yeah, it seems stupid like on the like outset, but how we teach our children and the values we give to them, it's really, really important. It's moments like this, like having these kinds of conversations about like children's novels and all that, and how we teach people, it really relates to our values as a society and demonstrates how we've changed. And I think especially now, like we have taken so long to have this conversation. I remember 5 years ago, which feels like an eternity ago. I was watching, I love classic movies. I was watching Gone with the Wind for the first time. And I was like, why is this loved? I just didn't get it, because the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, this is what is Gone with the Wind. They're saying that slavery and this beautiful life of the South before emancipation has gone with the wind, and that's so sad. And it was offensive to watch, and it just felt kind of like a gross movie. And the fact that TCM was putting it on with no context, there was no one talking about like the problems with it and all that stuff, and it was still being revered as this like amazing film and all of this stuff. It was just strange, and that sends like these like conflicting messages to people, especially young people, because they're being told one thing, but then on the other hand, these films are just demonstrating that, oh no, but slavery was kind of okay because people had great outfits and there's a beautiful culture. So I just like, I think this is a good conversation to be having in general, and it is important, even if it seems really stupid.
Yeah. So
Go ahead, Paul.
I would say that
Hey,
like
I'd like to just
I've
inject
looked.
one quick.
I would say that I've specifically.
I'm sorry, but just
you can go, Phil.
Go ahead, KOE, and then we'll go back to.
Thank you. I was just going to say one quick point. I might have like a 2-second delay on behind all of you, so I do apologize. But how big are we going to let the canceled library get? I'm just curious. Like at some point, is the canceled library going? Then the library of to read and things that we're allowed to discuss, because it's some get to that very odd point where how large are we going to let this canceled library get? I am kind of being remembered a phrase of George Orwell: the past was erased, the erasure became forgotten. Something to think about.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know some of the Goosebumps books, for example.
Polar.
I mean,
Let Polar talk.
Oh,
We are suppressing a minority voice here, and a minor at that.
Wow, he got you.
First you made me feel bad, then you made me feel like, why the hell am I giving my time to a minor? Go ahead.
No,
Paul.
so I think I think this like so. Eris is right on this point. As someone who is a Zoomer and has gone through the education system, I swear we were looking at one book, something Mountain. It's not Brokeback Mountain because we probably wouldn't look at that in class, but it's a different mountain. It was also a Civil War story, and one of the things that I ended up looking at, it was this effect where children who see people that look like them will start to feel more comfortable, or see positive representations of people who align with some of the things that they hold or look like or act like, tend to feel a lot more positive about the situations that they're in. So children's books and the way that children see themselves in media and TV is like really important when it comes to how comfortable they feel in society, how people view them, like all that good stuff. Now I gotta say, I'll draw the line when they take away the Grinch. When that happens, I'm going up in arms. To be honest.
The Grinch is really scary, so I don't know.
Boss,
Well,
you can finish
call it a
whatever
horror movie if you need to. Eris, but you can call it a horror movie, but you can't take it away.
Boss, you can finish whatever point you're making. Then we'll go.
Oh yeah,
and
sure.
then we'll stop back
Look,
at Doobie.
I guess I would say that I feel like the broader point of cancel culture has been like thoroughly litigated several times now. Like every time we have one of these disputes, although I'd agree with Eris that it is an important issue. One thing though I'm kind of curious about is that I guess is sort of a related issue to the like another element of like cancel culture, which is the notion of being fired from your job for something that you say or do outside of your job, which is unrelated to your job, but which nevertheless is perhaps very rightly offensive to somebody else. And I remember when I first started doing Twitch, being a corporate shill and all that, my main point, it was always, it doesn't matter. It's the right of company to fire them, and that's their business, right? It's between, the employee and the company, and that's it. Now, though, while I guess since everybody seems to really go with that, I'm curious whether or not that's the kind of society we want to live in, where you can, where that is, you can basically be fired for your private activities outside of work. I would never say that your company should be prohibited from doing that, but I do wonder whether that's a norm that we want to, contribute to.
Well, let's go to.
I would never do that.
Let's go to LSB, who had his hand up before. Then we'll go to Connor. All right.
Oh man, this went in like two different directions, and now I want to address Bastiat's point, but originally I wanted to address Polar's point. So we're gonna do this Bastiat first, and then Polar. Because I feel like Bastiat's touching on like a way more fundamental issue in that we're at this precipice of catastrophe because our lives are becoming increasingly interconnected with our internet personas, more or less. Like we're finding different ways to express ourselves in some ways that are even self-destructive and that other people wouldn't want to be affiliated with, if they had like a real name to attach to it. And I think if you normalize this idea that, I mean, I've played video games. I've let my little edgy boy get out sometimes because I get frustrated. Everyone has, and if they have it, they're fucking liars, right? The idea that I could be fired for that's a little bit like as frightening as a proposition. So I kind of agree with this in much the same way, like with any political view. I think I would extend this even further. I think if you can't discriminate on somebody on the basis of their religious opinions, I think you shouldn't be able to do it on their political opinions either. That said, okay, so to the Polar's World point,
Agreed.
The thing I feel like we're missing here, yes, I agree, Polar's World. Having positive role models for kids is a good thing. You want people to be able to look positively at some sort of figure and have the positive values of that figure reflect back on you in a way that they internalize. But you need schools, you need parents, you need all these other things to work in concert with us. And nobody's saying you can't simultaneously have content that you can, that is itself problematic, that you can teach as problematic. You can even use it as an example, and content that is as well. It is evocative of a positive role model. These can exist in the same world, and in the school system, I would argue they should exist in the same world.
Let's go to Connor. As we're going to Q, then we'll go DB.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so Bastiat said that cancel culture has been thoroughly litigated. I'm sure it's been fought out in the culture wars a few times, but basically, I don't think it's been litigated in the broader culture. So, for instance, Steven Crowder basically makes an entire career off of like grievance culture and the conservative fucking prosecution complex. This is largely a lack of understanding or a lack of consensus on fucking cancel culture, what's cancelable, what the Overton window is. And if anything, like we should be ashamed that like Mr. Potato's fucking penis being taken out of the box is actually just fuel for fucking Steven Crowder. So do we want to live in a society where firing people for outside activities is acceptable? Yes, we do. And the reason why we want to do that is because basically what's going on is when we used to live in a communal setting, we used to have cancellation, but that was called banishment or killing people. And basically what we had was polite societies because your entire social relationships was reliant on the 30 people with which you lived with in a tribe. When we moved to cities and there were thousands of people and there was no lack of accountability and like all that kind of shit, we basically became a whole bunch of like encultured sociopaths. When you see social media making a return, we're struggling with this, but social media is returning the normal social pressures that happens when you live in a community. So immutable characteristics, no, we shouldn't be punishing people for immutable characteristics, whether that's like, sexual preference, basically religion, all that kind of stuff. But I would argue that politics and some personal choices should be on the docket. So for instance, a woman in California her children were recently expelled from a school because she had an
sword right there.
1 second, we're almost done. She had an OnlyFans account that she promoted among some people who went to the Catholic school. And then she used the story about her children being expelled as an opportunity to promote her fucking OnlyFans. I completely stand by a fucking religious institution saying, nah, this doesn't fit our moral categorization of the behavior that we think is appropriate. You can get the fuck out.
It's just kind of strange, though, that you would limit it to immutable characteristics. I mean, surely you are not comfortable with firing people for their religious choices. Religion certainly is not an immutable characteristic.
I would actually argue that part of it is. So basically...
Wait,
what do you mean by that? That's a pretty big point.
I was about to say, people's political principles and religious principles are actually pretty close to each other in some instances.
Sure. Yeah, that's where a lot of people.
So wait, though. I mean, so were you okay then with firing people with their religious principles? Or are you saying though that then that it's an immutable characteristic somehow?
What's the difference? Hold on. So let's we're painting with a broad brush. We're painting with a broad brush, right?
Then yeah.
Okay, so let's get very specific, okay? So basically, if somebody falls into the liberal framework, no, I don't think that they should be banished specifically for religious principles. However, if they're a fucking authoritarian theocrat that thinks fucking gays should be thrown off of rooftops or bombing abortion clinics are fucking okay, and on top of that they promote it publicly, fuck yeah, kick that motherfucker out of your institution. Of course. You guys are all thinking normie fucking politics. You know, fascism is a political ideology, right? You know, authoritarian communism is a political ideology, right? Like, you basically want these people to not suffer any social consequences for promoting these ideologies.
And American exceptionalism is an ideology. Should somebody be fired for thinking that it's okay to bomb people in the Middle East? Like,
Say
how
that.
should somebody be fired if they think it's okay to bomb people in the Middle East?
That's up to the institution that they're a part of.
Would you do it?
Would I fire somebody for bombing people in the Middle East? No, but
Is
Well,
that
guess what?
That's different.
Like,
What I guess what I'm getting at is I'm not sure that, like, I guess you're saying that basically you stand by the kind of position that I said earlier, which is that all that really matters is that the institution wants to fire you, and that's basically it.
yeah, it's some level of freedom of association, and then we try to eliminate some of the bigotry through basically like very limited law sets.
But
Why-
you don't
why
see
not
any
really
like
think
social issue.
yeah, but
with
why
that.
don't?
Well,
ask-
bring one up.
I would.
Well,
Can I ask you? So I would
go
ask.
ahead.
Yeah. So, you mentioned immutable characteristics. What if someone's defending like this group for having their immutable characteristics? If I'm on my Twitter bio, I'm like, "Hey, racism is wrong," right? Is that something that you think someone should be fired for? That's in and of itself a political opinion. But you mentioned you probably shouldn't be able to discriminate on the basis of an immutable characteristic. But this person is defending like that you shouldn't be able to do that.
Are we talking about like private institutions or public institutions?
Private institutions.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
just stick with
so-
those to make it easy.
Okay, sure. So private institutions, yeah. I mean, like, I'm sorry, like you guys are basically picking all of the good examples where it's like, if somebody's a vocal BLM supporter, should they be able to be fired? But you're not thinking of the inverse, which is what if somebody is a vocal KKK supporter? So you're looking for all the good examples, and I'm not saying this is a gotcha. I'm just saying that this is like where we need to apply it, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
No, I think you're absolutely right. But I guess what I would say is for anybody here,
our argument, not yours.
well, no. I mean, for anybody in here who's thinking, no, I don't think it's a good idea to fire people for their political opinions or for whatever. I mean, Counterpoints is absolutely right. Like when I would argue this stuff and say, no, you have to be legally allowed to do that because, for example, a Nazi is a walking like workplace, harassment risk, right? Even if they're very polite all the time at work, at the end of the day, their beliefs are fundamentally like
is a Muslim a walking
other people, right?
Is a Muslim person a workplace harassment risk?
Well, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that there are at least some.
I'm asking you if it's the same
No,
thing.
I don't think that's the Muslims. What I'm saying is that
Let's go to
what I'm
Doobies.
saying is
Same
that
regressive beliefs about homosexuals that a fascist would have.
what I'm saying is I think that I think if you want to go beyond the point that Counterpoints is making, that basically it should be up to the institution. Like if you want to develop some kind of social norm here that is consistent, I don't know how you do that other than basically resorting to your version of his point that good people keep your job, bad people get fired.
We got to go to Doobies. We're waiting very patiently. Then we'll go to Vadim.
So I actually had a point earlier about book burning and film burning. I actually don't see a good reason we shouldn't do that, first off, but just on this topic, I don't see how you wouldn't connect the two, right? So how is a Muslim person or an evangelical Christian not as much of a workplace harassment risk as a Nazi, right? Given their religion stances on things like gay rights.
Who
Right?
are you asking?
Any of these people that are something we shouldn't be able to fire people for their religions. Right. So given that these religions have stances on social issues, if I find these stances to be objectionable, and they might interact with someone that's part of this community that their religion openly discriminates against or advocates for discrimination for, why shouldn't I be able to fire them for their religious beliefs?
Because
Sure.
well, one, because this isn't a problem that you can't force people into poverty to get them to change their positions, right? You can't starve
that's
people
not
into
true.
their politics.
Oh, yeah, you can.
The question is not whether we're trying to
I'll be
get
right
them
back.
to change their positions. The question is, should you have to associate with, I guess people like that you might disagree with. I went with
associate with-
Nazis because that's
We're
pretty
talking-
universally
we're
easy to
talking
disagree
thought
with.
crime. Well, we're talking thought crime here. The standard should be what is your conduct, not what are your beliefs.
So
I
wait,
totally
isn't Bash
disagree.
already
Okay.
faced
Well,
that?
that's a fine standard to set, but I'm curious what people think about that because I think few people out there would be willing to say, yeah, you know what? Even if I know you're a Nazi and you are out there in your private time expressing Nazi beliefs that you don't bring to work, but you're expressing them in your private time, I think there would be very few people out there that would be willing to say to the employer, you know what? You should stand behind them once they get unmasked, and you should not fire them because they didn't bring that stuff to work. I'm curious if there's anybody who's willing to stand that point.
So let's go to Vadim, who's been waiting.
I really don't.
Hold on. Okay, wait. We'll go to Vadim first, and we'll go right to you afterwards.
Gosh, I have one very disconnected point. I'm sorry, I'm a little out of it today. One is like I've been trying to think about this because like on one hand, of course, I want to see as much diversity in everything. I mean, children's books and but the topic at hand is children's books. And it's a little, I don't know if there's really much to talk about in terms of this point that I'm about to make, but it's a little sad to me because I think that we live in a time in which back when Dr. Seuss was printing books, it was easier for one author to dominate a market. And even back when, about 20 years ago, it was easier to do such. So I don't know if we're ever going to have another Dr. Seuss. And by that, I mean another writer who is as influential in that market as Dr. Seuss. And the reason why that is a little sad to me is because of the fact that, I wish that there was someone out there who had more diversity within their work, that more kids could read those books and just see themselves inside them. So that's one point. And then the other thing is just kind of silly, but all of this talk is making me wonder, just a general question to everyone. Does everyone remember when Chris Cantwell, the Nazi who is at Unite the Right and also was in that Vice documentary, he was kicked off of OkCupid for being a Nazi, which I think is totally fucking fine. I am fine with that. But does anybody here oppose Chris Cantwell, who did not openly say that he was a Nazi in his profile? Does anyone think that is some sort of hideous censorship or just an injustice in some way?
I have a
question. To kind of expand on that really quick. So he didn't just lose his OkCupid profile. He lost his job, other work opportunities. Nobody wants to touch this guy with a fucking 20-foot pole because he's everywhere. Is the crying Nazi from Charlottesville, right? So I personally, I think it's totally fine. Right, if you've decided to attach yourself to white supremacy and Nazism, people don't want to fucking deal with you. That's totally okay. You kind of dug your own grave.
Yeah. Look, I'm inclined to agree. It's just the reason I start with like the Nazi example is that there are people who are less objectionable than Nazis that personally I maybe wouldn't want to, maybe I wouldn't want to have a really vocal Trump supporter in my workplace. Maybe I'm fucking sick and tired of hearing about the election and how it was stolen. Maybe I am so fucking up to here about how they're taking our country. We got to build the wall and on and on and on. So, certainly by the same logic, there's no problem firing somebody for being a Republican, is there?
KOE and then LSP.
Now, that's a professionalism.
Thank you. This is one thing we all have to ask ourselves. Are we prepared to be living in a world where you now have to prove, with the burden of proof being on you, thoughts are up to state and or company standards? Is that really a world that anybody really wants?
Yes.
Wait, we already did that to
in. Like, I've hired people over my lifetime and I don't give a damn what their politics are. Okay, if they can do the job and we can make money together, glory be. But the idea that I'm like, no, I don't like your politics, like that's just a very unusual
position of privilege.
Are you including, just real quickly, are you including Nazism with politics? Because to me, that's perhaps separate than,
I'm just talking general politics. Like I was always under the impression you're not supposed to ask about it.
Okay, but KOE, like
I was always under that impression. Like, I generally don't talk politics.
Doobie, ask a question a little speed than Connor.
Yeah, so
bless you.
KOE, this kind of seems like it's coming from a position of privilege, right? Because I don't know anything about you, but just you passed a white guy, right? A white dude, and probably the majority white state. So people that you encounter on the job, out in public, are probably not going to be black supremacists, right? that want to hurt you. They're probably not going to be Nazis that want to hurt you. They're probably not going to be evangelical Christians that want to take away your right to marry the person you love, right? So you don't really need to worry about that, right? But a lot of other people in this country do need to worry about that and don't want to associate with those people because those people are genuinely dangerous to them, right? And advocate for the rights to be stripped. So I can totally understand. Like I can understand why you wouldn't maybe see this.
That's the beauty of freedom of association. You can choose who you want to
that's what
associate
we're
with
talking
or
about.
not. Like, I totally
Yeah,
understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
That
but you're
is the
being such a
absolute
hypocrite here.
beauty of
You
it.
always
But,
advocate for taking away
like, to
people's
me,
rights. Like,
Well, I
so
think
come
hold on.
on.
I think some people should have the rights taken away. I'm not saying that all people should have all
Yeah,
rights.
so what if I tell Prime I don't want to be on here with you?
Then you
the
can walk
sinner
away.
has the right to
Damn.
sin. I'm
Oh my
sorry. Like, it's
God.
not your place to say what they should or shouldn't do with their lives.
That's not true. It is our place to say that. So if someone decides, hey, I want
No,
to be,
it's
I
not
want
your
to be
place
an
to tell
Adam
somebody
Walker
else what to do with their lives.
post it on the internet advocating for accelerationist Nazism, right, and advocating for like nuclear bombing and shit. If I find out that this person's doing that and I'm employing this person, I don't want to fucking be around that person, right? If I find out that someone's an evangelical Christian and is actively donating to and supporting groups that do like gay conversion therapy, I don't want to be fucking associated with that person, so I'm going to fire them.
Yeah, I guess the point I was trying to make is that, I started with the issue of Nazis to start with a group that basically nobody likes, right? That's very easy to agree on. And then I tried to expand it a bit because, I feel like it's pretty easy to imagine in everyday life, people making decisions about other groups and movements that they don't want to associate with that are not so clearly objectionable. I think it's very easy to imagine a workplace saying, you know what, look, I'm all for, all lives matter, but this Black Lives Matter movement has really just been, it's out of hand, something like that. And then, I guess if we believe that like it's an okay standard to fire people for like their off work activities, I mean, it's not hard to imagine people using that kind of a standard to just stomp out all kinds of people that oppose them. So while I would be fine saying, well, sure, fuck Nazis, I guess the point is that I'm trying to make is it's hard to imagine this kind of stuff just like stopping with groups
Yeah, but
that we agree.
That's a slippery slope. That's a slippery slope fallacy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like it's
Not
you
all slippery
can
slopes are
just draw
fallacy.
the line right at
Not
always
Nazis.
a
Like,
fallacy.
you can draw that line.
Do you think anybody's going to draw that line just at Nazis?
Okay, hold on. We got to go to LSP and Connor. I want to engage with you, boss. Yeah, on that
All right,
specific point
go for
later
it.
on. But LSP, Connor.
Okay. So to the Chris Cantwell example, like, was it a great injustice him getting kicked off OkCupid and losing his job, and it's all hilarious and all that. If I had to describe it, I would say it's a little bit like Saddam Hussein. Like, he was a monster who deserved to die, but he also got like a total sham trial that was, it was basically victor's justice in the kangaroo's court, and it was a serious violation of due process rights.
He didn't lose.
I mean, who gives a shit? It's Saddam Hussein.
He didn't lose a job. He was a podcaster, and so that never happened. But go on.
Whatever. Well, we'll just say, okay, we'll use a hypothetical Nazi here, right? This is a point that Doobie's touched on and Bastiat's touched on. I don't agree that people choose their beliefs. Either something makes sense to you or it doesn't. None of you could just flip on a dime to choose to believe Nazi shit. It doesn't work like that. In much the same way you don't just get to, I'm Catholic now, right? Either it's something that appeals to me or it's not. And I don't see much social utility in penalizing people for what's in their head that they can't control. If we don't accept this for people who are gay or trans or religious, I don't see why we should accept it for people who are political as well.
Okay.
So every characteristic is basically immutable.
God damn.
Connor,
right?
Connor, go ahead. He's just losing his shit.
LSP, I don't think we could be more far away from each other in perspective. So number one, Bastiat asking.
So far right now. So far, Connor.
Hold on. First you attack my smell.
I'm holding on.
First you attack my smell. Now I'm gonna attack you back. All right. So number one, all right. So Bastiat kind of gave me an eyebrow when I mentioned professionalism. Yeah, literally nobody that I work with knows my politics. Nobody. Not a single fucking person. You know why? Sure. Because I know politics is a hot button issue. Not a single person knows my religion at work because I'm a professional. I show up at 9, I do my job, I go home, I shut the fuck up. Work is for work and play is for play, and I'm going to keep it that fucking way. So basically, if somebody finds out that I cuss a lot on the internet and they no longer want to associate with me, I'm going to be a little butthurt about it. But at the same time, I'll move on with my life because there's going to be other people who don't give a fuck. And basically, hold on. Basically, I have to move on to LSP, and then we can try to go from there. People don't choose their beliefs. Beliefs is like the one fucking thing you do choose. It's the one fucking thing that is malleable. You can actually research things. You can hop onto wikipedia.com and start clicking through all the fucking links. You can listen to fucking political pundits like the beautiful people here who are all arguing different fucking ideas. All right. So basically,
you have to have the impetus to do any of that. You have to have
Your
the
base
drive.
principles aren't.
Hold on. You're being very ableist about the intelligence of our audience, and I love it, by the way. But basically, I think you're wrong. So you were saying, like, I don't value the social ostracization of people who hold like nefarious beliefs. That is the only thing that we can control besides violence. So unless you want to impose good ideas through violence, then social ostracization and social punishment is how you keep bad ideas underfoot. So for instance,
you
I
get
think
them underfoot by having better arguments and convincing people.
What?
You the way you defeat bad ideas is with good ideas. You convince
Bullshit.
people.
God damn.
This is what democracy's founded on. Yeah, no.
Democracy is terrible. Democracy
is terrible.
Okay, democracy. Hold on.
Wait,
hold on, hold on,
counterpoints,
hold
are
on,
you
hold on,
coming
hold
to
on.
the monarchists?
No, I'm not. I'm a representative Democrat. But at the same time, like, democracy is the worst political system except for all the other political systems, okay? And here's the fucking thing, all right? Here's the thing. You said you defeat good ideas with bad ideas. Or wait, you defeat bad. That's actually what you do. You defeat bad ideas with good ideas. How do you explain?
You make more appealing arguments to convince people.
I'm about to make a point. How do you explain the past 5 years of internet politics, where the most dumb fuck political ideologies are wildly popular with a shitload of people? How do you explain Hassan Piker? How do you explain Hassan Piker being a multimillionaire for his political beliefs? It's because he's hot. His politics are dog shit.
Right. He's also very talented. No, there's a lot of.
He's already wealthy before he ever showed up.
Multitude of things that we know. There is a multitude of things we know convince people that get people turned on that they have absolutely no control over. Kaylee's a prime example of this just now. He is emphatic, enthusiastic, energetic, and we all love him for that. So you get your eyes drawn to him. Now, the key to defeating somebody whose ideas are as dog shits as his is getting somebody who's him but better. Right? It's like just being able to convince somebody. You can't
give me a fucking break. That doesn't always
have an idea thrown to you that is convincing to you.
You had me at hello, but you had to ruin it there at the end, man.
You know that
it was so good.
Sorry, I haven't talked for a while. Okay, LSP, you know that does not. I mean, look, to some extent, yes, it will, but you know it doesn't. I mean, that's why we still have idiots on Fox News and other stations like arguing over things like climate change, things that really have.
Why are they able to do that, Vadim? Like, why are they able to be effective at that? Yeah, why do people believe climate change isn't real?
I mean, I think that's a complex question. I think that it has a lot to do with the fact that there are market incentives. It's
not a self-evident theory.
In order to have people, yes, it is. Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
Can I answer this question and then give it back to Vadim?
Yeah, because there is something that I wanted
I'm just
to
saying,
say
like,
aside from
there's
that.
no way you can just see it with your five senses.
I want to answer LSP's question, and then I want to give it back to Vadim, okay?
Yeah.
So it's because, why is Fox News successful? Because oil companies pay hot idiots to fucking say propaganda, and my boomer dad likes to, not him, by the way, because he's very wholesome, but boomer dads like to look at hot chicks in mini dresses saying that driving trucks and eating red meat is not a problem for the environment. That's why Fox News gets to do what they get to do.
And do these boomer idiot dads choose to like hot chicks?
You got a lot of rage towards a lot of conservatives.
Yeah, I mean, these people have things that appeal to them. It's innate to them. That's the case with everybody. That's why certain things are able to be easier to convince other people than other things are.
Yeah, is it because their ideas are good, LSP? And sorry, Vadim,
no, it's because their presentation is better.
All right. I think that Counterpoints actually vocalized what I was trying to say quite well in terms of what I was getting at with profit incentives. But I want to say,
I'm going to interrupt you again, Vadim.
No, come on.
I'm kidding.
Let's go to Vadim, and then after that, Puller.
Okay, so I'm going to throw something out there because this is something that I've been wrestling with. On one hand, I totally understand. Yes, like if there is someone who you legitimately think is dangerous, someone who you think is going to present a dampening effect, that's a bad way of putting it, that is going to make the rest of your employees feel unsafe within the work environment. It's totally understandable to want to fire that person. And I think I think they should be able to. But then at the same time, I do have this belief that people have the right to work and that people should
wait,
not.
wait.
Wait. Let me finish what I'm saying. So I do not think that people in perpetuity for the rest of their lives should be punished and not be able to hold a job, which is potentially easy to happen with the internet and everything, how people can like look people's history up and whatnot. So how do we square that? How do we create a oh shit, am I still here?
No, you're good. You're good.
How do we create a society in which we can both take care of people who, and by take care I mean fire people who will make people in the workplace feel unsafe, and then also ensure that they are not locked out of the workplace for life? Can we do that? Is that like?
I think that outside of a norm, like outside of some kind of norm, that cultural norm, I don't think there's any like legal way to do that. Like that I could think of. Maybe somebody can think of a content neutral way to do that, where we can do that and discriminate against all the people we all don't like, but also let the people we do like work. But I that's why I raised the cultural norm issue, because I think that that's really the only way forward. I also want to say one thing to although I'm open to alternative ideas, I also want to say one thing to Counterpoints, who mentioned, I'm a professional. I keep my stuff out of, I keep my beliefs out of work and all that. It's very easy to imagine an employer saying, I mean, there are laws that people are trying to, put in place to deal with issues like this, but an employer saying, hey, we have a real friendly company. And, we like to, as your employer, I want to friend you on Facebook. We're a family here at this company. I want to friend you on Facebook. It's nice we do events out in the community and all that,
Yeah,
and
I'm triggered.
it's just real easy to imagine, a situation where, yeah, maybe you don't want to put your beliefs out there at work, but, your employer wants to find out a little bit more about you. It's also entirely possible that maybe you get involved in a political affair, in your local area. Maybe you demonstrate or do something, you write a letter to the editor or whatever, and your employer sees that. So I don't think it's as simple as Counterpoints is saying. That's certainly an element to it, but I don't think it's as simple as Counterpoints is saying, where you can just, it's up to you, because, sometimes it just ain't going to be up to you.
Okay, let's go to Counterpoints. You can respond quickly. We have to go to Police. Been waiting very patiently.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, so I'll try to be quick, Polars. So basically, friend on Facebook, decline that shit. I'm giving you free advice. Often lawyers. Hold on.
Just to be clear.
Yeah, lawyers often like to say, oh, this is not legal advice. This is legal advice. Decline that shit. Do not be friends with your fucking boss. Do not be friends with your fucking coworkers. Operational security is a concept. You should Google it. You should Wikipedia it on this beautiful thing called the internet. Freedom of association. I don't give a shit. Like, I literally don't care. There are plenty of progressive institutions. Most corporate institutions are progressive. There are plenty of liberal institutions. Most corporate institutions are liberal. There's plenty of conservative outfits. There's plenty of conservative fucking things. You can find a fucking home as long as you're not a Nazi or an authoritarian commie. And I want to answer this very briefly. The Christian ethic of forgiveness is what you're looking for. And basically, I have a video about it. It's about RGR and Demon Mama and the Christian ethic of forgiveness. You should go ahead and check it out, because basically, if you atone for your sins, you ask for mercy and redemption, people can give it to you. But if you want to say you're sorry, then you have to atone, meaning you try to make this. And with that, I yield.
Okay, you went robot voice at the end. We understood what you said.
The left doesn't forgive and forget, though. That's where you're wrong.
We got to go to Polar.
Doesn't forgive.
We got to go to Polar. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, yeah, when it came to the points of like belief and how do you change someone's beliefs, I think there's an important point that looks at like I think LSP's right on the point of presentation. When you have someone like come on, Hassan, like if you really think that we're all watching Hassan because he's like the greatest political genius of our time, then I think you're sorely mistaken. It seems like presentation, the way that things are presented, as well as the optics in the community that comes along with beliefs, right? Some people are heavily like, I don't want to say indoctrinated, but like integrated into their religious communities as a result of their families, as the community around them, yada yada yada. I think we all know where this is necessary. necessarily going. So beliefs to a certain extent are very difficult to change, and that maybe is a result of like some historical background as well.
But so I'll say this to Basia is what I wanted to say before, right? We can understand that for some jobs at least that at least maybe we can understand, maybe we can agree or not, that some jobs at least that you literally cannot have people with certain beliefs, right? So like there was a case in Florida, of course. There was a woman who was running like a Nazi podcast, white supremacist podcast, right? Who was also a kindergarten teacher, and she actively said on the podcast that like she she wants to encourage the white kids, right? And she actively tries to discourage the black kids and anyone else, right? Like actually tries to like make them feel bad about themselves. This was her mission. And then of course we have like people with guns being the cops, right? So when we find that they are affiliated with Nazi or white supremacist groups, then we fire them, or at least we should. So what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think like, and again, just to be clear for anybody who, may be misinterpreting my position here, I absolutely think it is 100% okay for the employer to decide to fire all these people. I'm just talking about how we feel about that as a cultural norm, not, saying that I want to, create laws to protect Nazis in the workplace. But the situation you just raised, for example, that seems real easy no matter what you think, because she's confessing to the fact that she is doing her job like, she's not doing her job properly, right? She is helping some kids and actively hurting other kids. Like, I think the more challenging issue to me is, suppose that she is a fine kindergarten teacher and does not say anything to the extent of, I'm actively trying to hurt my students or whatever, doesn't, have any complaints or anything, but still nevertheless runs that Nazi podcast and is big, rah Nazi in her private life. That is kind of what I'm getting at, right? Like, if you can't say, I'm going to fire you because of your, obviously your beliefs are affecting your work, that's real easy. But if they're not, and if what you've got is basically an outrageous person with respect to their private conduct, are we, is everybody basically okay saying, you know what, fuck them, we hate those people?
I'm sorry, I have to butt in here. I have to butt in here real quick.
Let me just finish the point. If that's the case, I know there are other people that we're willing to fire beyond just Nazis. And maybe you're not, but I would. Maybe I'm not, but you would.
Prime, are you the example that you're using right now? Is that a woman from Florida?
Yeah, Florida. Yes. I said Florida.
I just have to butt in and say that I live in the actual town that woman is from. So that's all I got to say. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Got the inside scoop.
Yeah. So here's my point. So Bastia, you keep saying like we're okay in these extreme examples, but are you okay with more mundane examples? Yeah, I'm saying yes. Okay. I'm saying yes. So I'm okay with more mundane examples. So for instance, I brought up the parent who was talking to her, Catholic school PTA friends about how she had a fucking OnlyFans. It's a private institution. They obviously let's just say they have some perspectives on feminist sex positivity that might not align with this individual woman. And I think it is their right as an institution to say, hey, we're providing you a service. Basically you're breaching a morality clause that we expect of people who are a part of our private institution. Therefore, you got to go. So
what gets me
I'm perfectly okay with that.
Yeah, I don't right. And again, I totally get the rationale there. But like, for example, I see people in Prime's chat right now saying, you don't leave Nazi beliefs at home. I would agree with that, but I also wouldn't agree with the notion that like those are the only beliefs you leave at home. Like, for example, if you're very serious about the fact that, people who want to come to this country need to come legally, you love immigrants. They've all got to be legal. We want legal immigration. And frankly, we've got too many immigrants right now anyway. We need to scale that back. I mean, do you leave those beliefs at home when you're dealing with, children who, maybe some of them are citizens, some of them are immigrants? I mean, to think about it on the flip side, I come at things from a more liberal perspective. But, a lot of people have very divergent views on abortion. Do you leave those beliefs at home as a health practitioner? So that's what I'm trying to get at is like, I can totally think of, more, what you perhaps rightly call mundane examples that nevertheless really do go to, our fundamental beliefs.
Let's go to Eris and then KOE.
Okay, well, I've talked about this on panels before, but
Mhm.
what Bastiat is talking about, even though I don't agree with him, I think I understand it because it's a very real issue and this is why I think it's so dangerous and why you should call out leftists when they call people Nazis when they're not, right? Calling someone who's just a little right wing of you a Nazi or a fascist is like that causes real harm and it leads to outlooks like Bastiat's having right now. But in general, I think it's fine. I personally love being surrounded by people with completely different ideas, crazy ideas. Like, I love that shit. And I think that creates a really great learning environment in general. Though in work, that's not the best learning environment. You should probably not talk about politics at work in particular. It's just like, I think that it's totally fine. For me personally, I always draw that line at the Nazis, and I think that that's totally okay. There's no rule that says you have to, um, you have to be completely consistent all the time with your ideas of free speech. You can be like, it's fine to draw that line. And to me, Bastiat, you saying like, I understand that you're worried about, those people that like, what if that person says that you're a Nazi? What if that person says that anyone who's a little right wing is dangerous and problematic, etc.? But to me, that's like saying that reminds me of like the old argument where they used to say that just because there are some psycho leftists who use gay marriage as a gateway argument for legalizing pedophilia doesn't mean that gays shouldn't be allowed to marry, right? So I just think that you should just deal with that separately and just say that that's not cool either.
I get that idea that like, it's easy to just say, okay, well, there's some people that we all agree are beyond the pale, but I feel like that's actually I feel like it's kind of I feel like it's a very optimistic take. I mean, there are a lot of much more, generally more, I guess more mundane, to again go back to Counterpoint's word, maybe religious sects that have very strong opinions about the proper role of women. I mean, if you discover that a hiring manager has those beliefs, I mean, is it really is it unfair to say that this person whose fundamental belief, I mean, this person who believes so deeply in something that they're placing their immortal soul at stake here, right? Is it really fair to say that they will nevertheless, be objective and neutral when it comes to a hiring decision? I mean, I just feel like it's entirely plausible to imagine situations that are much likelier, than dealing with, say, Nazis.
Sure, but you need to deal with that on like a case by case basis because.
But then if you agree that this is an issue in some capacity and you just say, well, the answer is deal with everything on a case by case basis, what you're saying is right now what we do is fine because that's what we do. We deal with everything on a case by case basis.
So let's go.
I do think on average it's fine. Can I just respond to that?
Yeah, please.
I think it's fine to deal with it on a case by case basis, particularly with religion, because it's really easy to just paint all religious people in one category with the same brush. But like, especially like Doobie brought up Islam, but there's so many different interpretations of Islam. So I think it's totally fair for a Jewish person to say, okay, I'm not okay with working with someone that like loves Louis Farrakhan, right, and like worships that kind of Islam. But but tons of Muslims don't. Like that's not their version of Islam, right? So I that's where tolerance is a really big deal. And it's useful because the truth is there's just so many people with different religions and we're going to completely kill one another and not be able to work with any kind of diversity if we're requiring moral purity from everyone.
Oh boy.
I mean, I guess I feel like we gotta move on.
We gotta move on. So let's go to KOE LSP Doobie. And then we'll probably move on to the next topic.
Now we were touching on the idea of certain topics you shouldn't bring up in society. It was some very good advice from my grandmother. She was half Greek, half Hispanic, and she said the three things you should try to avoid in polite society are the topics of race and politics, because at some point people are going to disagree. That's just intractable. For some reason, if you talk those three topics long enough, folks are going to start to disagree about things. Now, one thing I would like to bring up is I find it fascinating that now we've got so many people on the left that are conceding the idea that a business can fire anybody at will for any subjective reason. I find that very interesting. And are we going to allow people to be fired because they're wearing a bad cologne that day, or you just don't like their shirts, or like how far are we going with the substance for firing people? I wonder. And so, if we're going to make that standard, that any subjective reason, that is the standard we shall have, and it will be a double-edged sword. And I yield back.
Okay. I have a question. You said
Sure.
that this you kind of set the line at immutable characteristics, right?
I didn't. That was the one that Counterpoint said. I was actually kind of questioning his ideas of immutable characteristics.
So then,
but
how would you set that to like protected classes? Would that still apply to
Oh.
protected classes?
no, I think our protected class framework in the United States makes a lot of sense as a way of squaring like our ideals of free association with the fact that we want to have a functional economy and a diverse society where people can live together. I guess my whole point in this diversion is not to say that we should change any laws, which I don't want to change. I just want to, I guess, raise the idea that if you have any problem with the way things are going now, which is to say, the prospect of being fired for your out of work activities the moment they enrage enough people, if any part of that bothers you, and maybe it doesn't, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not sure it particularly outrages me, but it is something that I worry about now and then. If that bothers you, I don't really know what the alternative is other than to say that we want to build a sort of social norm where, generally speaking, we don't think you should be terminated for your out of work activities. Because if you don't have that kind of social norm just generally, I don't really know. And I'm not saying there wouldn't be any exceptions, but I guess generally speaking, I think if you don't have that kind of a norm, if you don't kind of argue for that sort of a norm, if you just say, well, everything is case by case basis forever and ever, amen, then you're just kind of okay with what we do now. And maybe you are, but there are a lot of reasons, I think, why maybe you shouldn't be.
Okay, let's go.
I would then
finish your point, Paula, and then
So then I would ask Basher, then how do you determine like a protected class in society, a group that you wouldn't apply this standard to?
Oh, I guess generally we've gone with immutable characteristics, except for like religion, which is itself, I think, sort of an outgrowth of American culture, founded in religious liberty and all that, and also the fact that religion is sort of squishy in that sense of immutability, because sure, you can choose your religion, but also a lot of people are born into religions that they sort of grow up with that become very deep-seated parts of them that they can never quite shake off. So, in terms of like deciding new protected classes, I couldn't imagine declaring political opinion to be a protected class. That seems like, because again, if you did such a thing, then how you would not be able to say, only the political opinions we like are protected, right? Only moderate political opinions, no extremes, and we've seen that, how that's unfolded in practice with the attempts to discriminate against communists during the Cold War, right? A lot of that stuff was found to be ultimately unconstitutional to tell, to say that somebody couldn't hold communist opinions if they wanted to have a job in the federal government, for example. Some of those laws are still in the books, but their application has often been ruled unconstitutional.
Let's go.
So I don't know how you could expand beyond the ones we've got now, basically. But
let's go to that. We got to move forward. LSP, then DB's been waiting patiently, and then we might move on to the next topic.
You're gonna get mad at me because I basically just want to grill Basti out on his position.
Oh my god.
Well, we can just move on to DB. It's not important.
Okay. All right. Let's go to DB. Then maybe we might come back to that. DB.
Okay.
Sure. Well, I just wanted to like sort of drag us back to the original topic, right? Dr. Seuss.
Is that what we're here for?
Yeah. But I was thinking about it, and there are like a ton of other things, right, that should probably be quote unquote canceled. That we should probably stop allowing on television, stop showing to children. Pepe Le Pew, for example, is literally a cartoon skunk that goes around sexually harassing and assaulting people. Ace Ventura.
That was pretty bad.
Transphobic as fuck. Indiana Jones, the way that it depicts Asian people and then the food that they eat and their customs, it's like savages and shit. That's pretty fucked up. Aladdin, Jasmine's literally turned into a sex slave in the film, and the entire thing is just like a hodgepodge of fucking racist tropes about Asian people. Lolita glorifies pedophilia. Dirty Hair is literally about a corrupt cop who goes around goon squatting people. Like there are a lot of films, a lot of media out there, right, that I think are pretty damaging to people. It could be damaging to young minds, right, if they were to consume it. So why shouldn't we cancel these things? Why shouldn't we stop producing these things? Stop showing these things on TV, and maybe start instead expose people to to things that are helpful to our society, right? To our modern society, and that are more palatable, more along the lines with what we want to promote, the values and the kind of culture we want to promote in our society, right? So I don't see any problem with, like, you could call this like book burning, film burning, whatever the fuck, but it seems like if we want to get rid of racism and sexism, we got to stop showing this to kids. Like, we got to stop allowing it to be shown on TV and glorifying it on TV.
Well, God damn it! Do you want a response or no?
Yeah, I do. After LSP, we'll go LSP go, and then we'll go to you, Connor.
Yeah, fuck Bastiat. I don't care about him anymore. Doobie, the reason you don't want to ban these things is because there's a lot of artistic merit to them. All these things you discuss about, like, these positive promotions you can give to people. This is why you have this called teachers, right? They're called parents. They're called, churches, communities, peers. There's all these different avenues you use to build these things up together that can coexist with a society that also has an appreciation for arts that might be seen as objectionable or have objectionable content in it. The problem, the reason you need these kinds of mediums is because a lot of people will take certain values at face value without ever thinking beyond it on a superficial level. Like, there are a lot of people who think racism is bad that couldn't tell you why racism is bad. And that's a problem. And art is a good medium for exploring the nuances of something like that would require a demonstration of something objectionable in order to elucidate some people on the different nuances of a topic like that. There's a lot of different topics like that.
I agree completely with what LSP just said, but I want to remind everyone that when it comes to Dr. Seuss, it's a very specialized or unique case that we're talking about here. We're talking about a work of art which is typically consumed by toddlers, and toddlers often just do not know how to process complex things. They can see racist depictions inside them and understand them on some level. They can feel humiliated and yet not know why, and they cannot understand if an adult says to them, okay, look, you have to understand there's a cultural significance. Like, they just hear goo goo gaga, So what I'm saying is that, like, really just Dr. Seuss books are so separate from so many other types of more adult entertainment that have potential harmful aspects. And that's why, as I said before, a warning at the beginning of a Dr. Seuss book is not necessarily going to be as effective as a warning in the beginning of a Disney film or just a film that someone who is slightly more mature or much more mature is going to understand.
Okay.
Yeah, I can be very brief.
Okay. Be very brief. Then we'll go to Doobie. Then we'll go to Bastiat.
Yeah, this is actually one of my prime objections with, like, utopians in general, and I would consider, like, any level of authoritarian as utopian. You basically think that you can, like, authoritarian your way out of humanity. Like, racism doesn't exist because of racist media. Racism exists because people are inherently tribal. Religious and fucking secular bigotry doesn't exist because, like, a
Did you
fucking
just 180 to my position from earlier? So these are things people don't choose.
No. It's not a question of whether or not they choose. And social ostracization is an extremely powerful tool over what ideas get promoted and what ideas don't. But basically what I'm fucking saying is that, like, you can calculate in, I'll shut the fuck up in 20 seconds. You can calculate in humanity, you can put in pressure, but at the same time, thinking that you're going to be able to solve humanity is an inherently authoritarian problem.
Okay.
Yield.
All right. Doobie then Bastiat.
So I think that's pretty stupid. I think people are pretty malleable, especially when they're young. But I don't know if you noticed, but what I was talking about wasn't like films that depict racism is a bad thing, or films that depict sexual harassment is a bad thing. Pepe Le Pew isn't like a cartoon about this evil skunk that goes around assaulting people. It's, oh, look at this naughty skunk again, grabbing that cat that doesn't want to be groped at. Oh, look at this naughty skunk again, attempting to rape somebody. Right? This is presented as a good thing. It's a funny thing that we should laugh at. Right?
French people are funny.
Indiana Jones. Right? This isn't depicted as, oh, no, this is why racism is bad. This is why you shouldn't be racist. It's literally, oh God, look at these dirty Indians eating monkey brains. Right? This is not the kind of film that LSP was talking about. I think there is a place right? For films about racism, about really difficult subjects that depict it as an awful thing that we shouldn't encourage, that we shouldn't glorify. Right? There's definitely a place for those films. These films are not that. Right. And I think that if we have things that are not that, that glorify these things, that glorify transphobia, for example, the Ace Ventura example I gave, they should. Why even have those on TV? Like, why allow this kind of like poison to be pushed out to society? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, Bastia.
Yeah, I guess the reason that I, another reason I tried to focus it on people rather than particular content is that I really think that the idea that content can really be meaningfully canceled is very much overstated. And I've got easy access, as we all do, to books by Hitler and Stalin. I mean, some of the worst Mao. I mean, some of the worst, most, people who have killed and done more brutality, any people. And their books are easy to find. I could, I'm not only going to get them online, I could drive down to, Barnes and Noble and pick up a copy. So I don't find that issue as compelling as the fact that, when individuals get canceled, they are oftentimes just fucking done forever. And that kind of thing is permanent in a way that wasn't in the past, thanks to the internet, which never forgets. So I guess, I'm happy to move on, but that's one of the other reasons I feel like that's a salient issue. We will never stop talking about Dr. Seuss any more than people will stop reading Mein Kampf, even though several countries have tried to ban it. It's just gonna, content will live on. But people, finite in our lives, just get, are sometimes crushed forever. And that's something I think that's an issue worth discussing.
So I think it's a good spot to move on to our next topic. But this was really good. Sorry, I'll speak. What, you want to respond?
Yeah, just on Bastiat's point about Stalin and Mao killing a lot of people. I spoke to Mel recently, and that might not be true. They might not have killed anyone.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Nice work there. All right, so I thought that was a really good conversation, and a really nice back and forth. So thank you all for that, really. So let's move on to the next topic. I think we might be able to have some fun with this. Topic 2. Yet another college student has been victimized by an incident of suspected hazing. The Ohio student was allegedly made to drink an excessive amount of alcohol. This follows another incident in Virginia where a student died at a fraternity, also after an apparent incident of excessive drinking. Should fraternities crap, I screwed up the question. Sorry. What's the I don't know how I did that. All right, whatever.
Pro streamer.
Oh, sorry. Just ignore that part. What use is the fraternity system? Do they do more harm than good? Should the fraternity system be banned? If not, how can we rein in its excesses and dangers? Okay. Pretty simple, though I screwed up when I wrote the question. Whatever. But it's pretty simple, okay? We have students, and we've all seen these stories, right? Students who have died in college because of some sort of hazing issue, right? Whether they've been assaulted, right? Or they've been forced to drink, or just like not even with hazing, just during the regular parties, people have alcohol poisoning because no one seems to give a shit, right? Has the fraternity system run its course? Should we keep it around? What do you guys think? We'll start with Polar.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, as someone who is going to a university next year, I will not be joining a fraternity for that reason and a few other ones. Hazing seems to be something that just seems like another toxic way of indoctrinating people into generally, especially in these cases, has been pretty toxic when it comes to indoctrinating people into these groups, like fraternities or whatever. I mean, I don't really have any experience with them, so if someone wants to give me the rundown on if they're really that great, I see the bonds of some sort of community, but I know some schools have dorm rooms that people live in to get they have community halls that people live in together, interact with one another, and that seems to be a much better way because they tend to have more regulation from the school. Frats seem to be kind of yikes in that sense, where they don't necessarily get as much overhead as some of the other programs that they have.
Last
so probably.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were done, but
no, I'm done now.
Last
sure. Yeah, so I've been looking at I was curious of how many hazing deaths there are in the United States, and from what I saw, just a quick search, there have been 200 of them since 1838 in the United States. And maybe we imagine that there are a few more than that, maybe double or triple or quadruple it. But it feels like, compared to the benefits that people feel like they derive from fraternities, which, I didn't join a fraternity. I sort of regret it sometimes because of the benefits of, connections that you build with people, lifelong friendships. I mean, the fact that not all of them require you to do weird, harmful hazing rituals. I mean, hazing deaths are tragic when they happen, but I guess I wouldn't say therefore, and there are probably fraternities that are uniquely, bad in what they do. And, I'm not saying that colleges should do nothing, but I guess generally speaking, the idea of writing off these really useful networking institutions and social institutions because of a relatively small amount of deaths over a relatively long period of time, that just seems kind of like a, excessive response that, like Polar, I would encourage you to at least, check them out. I wouldn't encourage you
I'll
to do
check 'em
anything
out.
dangerous,
Yeah.
but it seems like you might want to check them out. I wasn't in any, but I do know that people who were, they had real good, social
Okay.
connections afterwards.
So, Bastiat, when I wrote this question, I was gonna bet a kidney that you had been part of fraternity. Looks like I'm losing a kidney.
I wasn't, but I'm prepared to argue as if I was. All right.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate you. Let's go.
That's a gambling.
Yeah,
That's a gambling problem.
I really thought I had you on that one.
Somebody's getting a new kidney, and that's a good thing, Prime. You ought to be proud of that. That's a good sacrifice. All right. I mean, I wouldn't go for new kidneys, but hey, if somebody needs that kidney, you saved a life, my friend, and you had fun doing it.
Connor.
I don't think he had fun, but he did it.
Yeah, no, I'm going to side with Bastiat on this one. So basically, I think fraternal organizations have a role inside society. If we're going to have female-only spaces, if we're going to have brown, black, whatever spaces that are something only, then I think that there should be masculine only spaces, and that, communing, basically creating like fraternal bonds, doing camping, drinking, all that kind of stuff. I joined one of the most toxic and haze-prone fraternities in the world. It's called the Marine Corps, and basically they beat the dog shit out of me and make me drink shitloads of alcohol. And while I definitely almost died a few times, I really am going to value those memories for the rest of my life. So it's not just that, though. It's not just the fraternal bonds. It's not just a sense of community. It's not just all that kind of stuff. But specifically when it comes to academics, they don't have to be specifically toxic. They don't have to promote rape culture. They don't have to promote alcoholism. They don't have to promote all this toxic shit that we have associated with them historically. They can basically they can be created in a new image. And I think they don't have to carry all the baggage that is being associated with them right now going forward.
Okay.
Yield.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Vadim. A minute long, Vadim. Thank you.
Okay. Basically, I agree with what both Connor and Bastiat said. I don't think that this is a fraternity issue. I think that this is kind of more of just a, the righties listening are going to love me, a toxic masculinity issue that I think affects a lot of people. I mean, I didn't go to a school that had fraternities, but I've I've had friends nearly die from alcohol poisoning. I've seen people shit the bed. I saw Sylvester Stallone's son simulate rape on a life-size inanimate Barbie doll, and it was terrifying, and I'm still scarred by it. But my point is this, that I think that there are just toxic aspects of male culture that are due to things that we haven't confronted as a society. And I don't know if we're going to find a way in which to do that, but I'm hoping that maybe in the next few decades, we can start getting more real with that shit, so that when kids reach around that age, they don't just get totally fucking nihilistic and want to drink themselves to death.
Thanks so much. Let's go to Doobie.
I got to be honest. I find it really difficult to give a fuck about fraternities. I don't know how many of you know this, but I actually went to college, like a community college for about 2.5 months after sleeping with a summer school teacher to get out of high school. So this isn't an experience that I have. I don't really have a lot of experience with college life.
Dude, I was just about to go like virgin alert, and then you're like, I slept with my teacher. That's why. Whoa, incredible.
So I don't like. I don't really know. I read through the story. Seems like an issue with this specific group of people doing irresponsible shit. I don't know if that's worth just throwing out the whole fraternity system over. If there is some kind of benefit, some, like social connections and whatnot, for people that are in these fraternities. But all in all, I just can't find myself caring that much, to be honest.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Eris.
Okay, so I'm going to come at it a bit from a Canadian perspective. In Canada, it's more popular to have sororities in high school rather than in university. I was actually a president of my high school sorority, and I can say it was a fucking shit fest. And I'm really glad it did not continue on to university. Thank God. First of all, the gender essentialist view of dividing men and women separately, I think particularly creates a toxic environment, right? We're talking, and on top of that, it's like a system where it incentivizes discrimination and exclusion. So the reasons we used to reject people for rushing were stupid and mean, and it was just glorified bullying. And it was fucking brutal. I'm just I also think a place. I call me an idealist about university and college, but it should be a place for I'm tired of this. It's being seen as this glorified high school for partying. It's and just that's the main purpose of it. It's a place where you're going to participate in a 1,000-year-old scholarly tradition, and there's other ways to build camaraderie and stuff, and brotherhood or sisterhood or whatever you want to call it. And you could do that with academic clubs. For those of us who have been part of academic clubs, those are so much more rewarding, and I developed so much better relationships because the purpose of it all is for us to be learning and improving one another rather than these obscure senses of going up in the ranks and excluding people for really silly reasons. So I don't I'm not saying ban sororities and fraternities, but I think it's kind of weird the way they're seen as this super cool thing in the US, when in Canada they're kind of nerdy, and I think that's how they should be.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll go on to LSP.
Prime, if you need somebody to yoink that kidney out of you, I know a guy. That's number one. Number two, I feel like the question. So this is a throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing. Vadim's right? There's elements of it that absolutely promote this brand of toxic masculinity, and it's all a problem. And in fact, Eris is right too. That maybe merging these systems could be beneficial to that end. That said, the issue is with hazings in particular. Fraternities don't have to just be these places where people get the shit beat out of them by alcohol in order to become part of the cool kids club. There are fraternities oriented around community service and building community. And these are pivotal times in a person's life where it's good to learn how to interact with other people. And a lot of people acquire new friends with fraternities, learn a lot of new things. There's real social value in them.
Okay. All right, let's go to KOE, please.
Thank you, sir. If we're going to talk just a little bit unserious for a moment, the greatest fraternity of all time, Lambda, 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 Tri-Lam from Revenge of the Nerds. Come on, we give them a shout out. But and also, Prime, in regards to gambling with your kidneys, my goodness, I got a poker table right over here. You should come on over sometime. If those are the odds you like to do. In regards to fraternities, I do not think they have run their course, because I don't think social and business networking will ever truly run its course. So we will always have a need for that in one way or another. So now I never joined any kind of fraternities or anything like that. I'm not a joiner. You can't even get me to join the like extra points club at the local grocery store. I don't care. I'm not joining. Will they be done away with in the future? I think they're going to morph into something very different. I mean, just with the shift in our sensibilities over the last 20 years, we're going to have very different fraternities and sororities than we did, as I said, over that last time frame. But yeah, in one way or another, we will always need some way to not only business, but social networking. Now, we're doing it here, right here, on this marvelous show on the Prime K panel, but we will... Like I said, we will see what it will morph into in the next decade or two, but I don't think we'll ever be truly rid of such things. And with that, I yield back to you, beautiful people.
Okay. I think we're gonna have a big fight here, but let's go to Polar first.
Yeah, I would say that like I'm not for like completely getting rid
Rabble,
of
rabble, rabble.
fraternities or sororities. It just seems like they probably have some like issues that could probably be addressed. Like one of them that not necessarily only stems away from hazing, but like to me, at least from the data that I've seen, they have like higher instances of like binge drinking, and so that may result in like increased amounts of alcohol poisoning. And this seems to be not only common with like fraternities but sororities as well. So like maybe addressing that may be useful. I think Bashit is also right on the point that like I actually do know a lot of people that have gained connections to like fraternities and such as. So like I'm not for getting rid of them, probably just having a little bit more like oversight in some of the actions that they're doing, because like some of it does seem to be somewhat harmful.
Isn't
So
that
out of
part of
curiosity,
youth?
well, like that's something actually I'm not sure about. Like out of curiosity, we're talking about fraternities and sororities as say, I'm not talking about high school. I'm talking about organizations where everybody involved is 18 or older, is say an adult. Like, apart from the drinking laws, I suppose if you otherwise imagine that everybody there is following the law, I guess, in terms of, legal drinking, which I know is a bit of an assumption, but just for the sake of this thought experiment, like they're not children, right? These are adults who can make decisions for themselves. I mean, would we want to have oversight of just, somebody's non-college drinking club outside of college? I mean, what makes fraternities and sororities so special in that respect?
I would say, Bashit, that for me, what matters is the fact that so many of these people are not of age, and so many are like somewhat impressionable in college as well. So like, not only like if they're of age, that's like a very different conversation to me. But the fact that they're underage, they're getting to college, like they're drinking at these rates,
My
they
vapors.
seem to be harmful.
Is it your opinion, just to be clear, that 21 should be the drinking age and that you should be an adult at 18, but you shouldn't be able to drink? Because
that's actually a good question. I actually don't know. It's a very tough position to be put in, but at least I'm rolling like just for now. Like I can't make I don't know if I can make a strict decision on that, but like if we're gonna roll with what the law says now, then then if we say that the law is like right or just, then that's probably where I'd conclude this decision that like so many people under the age.
Let's go to Vadim. Let's go to Vadim, and then we'll go to you, Connor.
Okay, so this isn't related to anything that anyone said, but I just think that it's fascinating. I think that there is actually a great deal of similarities if you look at fraternity hazing culture and say gang culture. There are, sort of hazing rituals in gangs, like say Crips, Bloods, things like that. From what I know, I mean, I haven't actually been in either fraternity or a gang.
We couldn't have guessed. We couldn't have guessed, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. It looks totally look like I'm from South Central, but man, I'm getting a little problematic there. But seriously though, I do think
cancel you to hell.
Yeah. Okay, guys. I guess I'm gonna take some of my books off the market, like Dr. Seuss. But seriously though, I do think that it's interesting to think about, because I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Robert Bly. This may completely go over people's heads, but Robert Bly was actually the start. This is going to sound like shitty, but it's not. He was the start of the MRA movement, and it morphed into something horrible and disgusting. But what this man thought is that, and I actually think that there's some wisdom in what he had to say, is that one thing that is missing from our culture today is initiation rituals. He talks about a lot of different tribes and different societies that had them. And he talks about fraternities, and he talks about gang culture and stuff like that. And he says that these are kind of I guess you could say a way in which men are trying to find brotherhood and to find just friendship and some sort of kinship that they don't have in regular life. And I do think, I guess the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I just think it all comes back down to, and I'm sorry if I'm kind of like going all over the place, but I feel like I'm kind of introducing some things that are just sort of like a can of worms, and it's hard to like condense all of the ideas. But I do think that the shit really does come down to a lot of topics that are not confronted very much by men in general. And I think it comes down to toxic masculinity. So I'm sorry, I'm getting a little all over the place.
I don't think
maybe
it's
not
necessarily
articulating
toxic.
myself to my best.
Yeah, so like I said, I don't have any experience.
I'm not talking about. I'm not. Last thing I'll say. I know I talked for a while, but I just want to say, to clarify, I'm not saying fraternities are inherently toxic. I'm saying that the act of hazing and the like sort of trial by fire and just beating the shit out of guys before you accept them and whatnot, that's not a healthy way to kind of create a sense of brotherhood or community inside of
I understood.
fraternity. Yeah.
I understood that's what you're saying. I'm saying that I don't think that is necessarily toxic. I think that so like I said, I don't have any personal experience with fraternities or whatever, right? But my understanding is that separate from the social connections that you get, the volunteer work that they do, a lot of them do on weekends, their communities and whatnot, fundraising, all this kind of shit. One of the main draws of these things is that kind of brotherhood, right? This group of guys, some older guys teaching younger guys who just got into college how to be men, right? How to behave in social situations.
I don't think that's true, Doobie.
How to behave in business situations, right? And I think that like you mentioned rites of passage, like initiation and whatnot. Like I can't tell you enough how many young men I've encountered in real life and like on the internet, right? Who I don't know how to say this sounding mean, who are soft, weak, spineless, fucking like boys. They're boys, right? Because they grew up soft, grew up on the internet in a very, very sheltered environment, and they never had to face the kind of trial by fire that you're talking about. And I think for some of these people, that's a really positive thing that actually gives them tools that they need to confront other challenges later on in life.
You say it's character building, Doobie? Is that the term you would use?
I think so.
Yeah, but it really comes down to.
Wait. Let's hear Eris was pushing back on that.
Go for it. I apologize.
Thank you. So I mean that is toxic masculinity personified in a human being. So thank you for that, Doobie. I actually might get canceled for this. But single sex environments suck, right? I just think they suck point blank. I was briefly an Orthodox Jew, and I lived in a world where everything was divided over like on sex. Literally, there would be a wedding, and the bride and the groom were not allowed to dance with one another because there's a literal fence in between dividing the men and the women. And you know what that ended up leading to? The conversations on the women's side fucking sucked. Okay. And they were talking about all politics and philosophy and the interesting stuff on the male side. And I had to go talk about how this dress made people look fat. And it was just really shitty. So I do think in general, like that it leads to it leads to a lot of the stuff just being so much worse and so much more toxic, because there isn't like a balance there. So it ends up just being kind of like an echo chamber of masculinity. And I don't think it's people really join frats or sororities because they want that sense of fraternity. I think people join it because it makes them cool. They want to get access to parties, right? They think it'll actually get them laid. Like I think that those are the core reasons, and you can get that shit in like other environments.
It is a little surprising that our resident monarchist is also like anti-fraternity, let alone anti-single-sex institutions.
Yeah, you see, I'm just throwing stereotypes for monarchists, you know?
Okay, so
Yeah.
She's trying to get rid of the fraternities and bring back the guild system.
We will let Doobie respond quickly. Then we have to go to Connor, and after that, then I'm going to jump in because I'm going to make a big argument as to why we should get rid of fraternities. Right. So get ready for that. Go ahead, Doobie.
Sure. So, you said they want to go there because they think it'll get them laid. They think it'll make them cool. Well, the reason they think this is because they see that the males that are currently in the fraternities, right, and they see, hey, these are the cool guys that are getting invited to parties. These are the cool guys that are getting into women's pants. How do I be like that? Right. So yeah, I think that is a massive draw.
Toxic male. So that's the argument.
You're calling it toxic, right? I don't think we need the advice of a woman on what it means to be a man, right? I think if I'm looking for advice on what it means to be a man, I'm gonna go to other men. Right? I'm gonna go to other men.
That ain't all right, dude.
That's not cool.
No, that I wouldn't give it air.
The hammer has been dropped.
Oh my god, I wouldn't give a woman advice on how to be a woman, right? I don't know how to be a woman. I know how to be a man. Right. So I think, I'm not going to, we just have totally different mindsets. Right. So I think that, like I said earlier, there are a lot of people who don't get these experiences growing up, and you need these experiences. You need your balls busted sometimes. You need someone to punch you in the face when you fuck up. Right? I think that's totally fine. Right? You need to be taught. You need to be taught that there are hard lines in life. That if you cross these lines, you get punched in the face, and that's totally fucking okay to me.
Oh boy!
Right? So if fraternities, whether they learn that,
God forbid you use your words like an adult.
Right?
No.
Holy shit!
Jesus.
So
Honestly, when I go
we're gonna go. Sorry, we're gonna get back to you guys. We're gonna go to Connor. He's been waiting very patiently.
By the way, Eris, I stand you 100% here.
We're gonna go to Connor waiting patiently. Now I'm gonna jump in here, and then we'll go back to Polar, then Vadim. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so you guys gave me a lot of stuff to deal with, and it's weird that I'm siding with Doobie. I fucking hate it, but we're gonna do it anyways. So basically, Polars was talking about like, oh, well, they binge drink and they get into fights and they do the hazing rituals and all that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, that's part of like dialing in being an adult. Like you're not just born like a sober, chaste, rational, emotional, like a fucking emotionally stable adult. Basically, what happens is from 15 to 25, you commit cringe in social settings, and that 25 onwards, you still commit cringe, but you forgive yourself for it. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, binge drinking. I don't think that's going away with the fraternity system. I think teenagers love fucking binge drinking. And on top of that, the drinking age should be 18. Not because it's appropriate or more people aren't going to get killed, but because basically we need to stop infantilizing average people. And we need to say, hey, you need to start handling adult responsibilities as soon as fucking possible so you can become a part of the problem in America, by the way, is drinking culture, not drinking age. So, for instance, in Europe, it's often common for people to start drinking at 16, and they are rabid alcoholics and they don't do a good job. So, actually, I destroyed my own point. So, finally, gang culture and initiation rituals. Okay, so basically, what I think what we're really boiling down to here is we don't agree. I had a really pleasant conversation with Demon Mama, so I hate to fuck it up now. But we don't agree on what's toxic masculinity, and we don't agree what's on masculinity. So for instance, initiation rituals, the gauntlet where you're getting the shit kicked out of you and you have to run through a fucking group of dudes who are fucking punching you in the face. Basically, okay, you can say that's fucking toxic. But the whole reason, whether that's metaphorical or literal, is because what you're trying to do is you're trying to gauge somebody's reaction under stress. And the reason why fraternal organizations value that is because it is stereotypically masculine to try to handle yourself well in times of stress, in times of conflict. and these are positive virtues, positive attributes, and these are positive attributes and virtues that you cannot learn unless you're tested.
Okay, all right. First of all, all right. So I will let you. Just wait. No, just give me a second. First of all, times of stress. Connor, we've seen you in times of stress, and you freak the fuck out every goddamn time. Love you, buddy. But like, is that how you test? I'm testing you here on a panel, and you freak the fuck out every time. I love you, buddy. But
okay, you know what? Spray. Okay, hold on. I have to address this. So if we were having the same conversations in person, number one, we would all be drunk. And number two, we would be fucking
I will not be.
We would be banting. Okay, that's number one and number two. So the fact that you think increasing the volume of my voice means that, like, you know, we can't have a good time, that's bullshit.
I don't say that.
Number two,
you know, I don't believe that.
Number two, if Doobie said, like, I hate and love Doobie, but some of the shit that Doobie said to me, if it was said in person, we would be fighting. Like, physically, we would be physically
that would not
fighting.
end up well for Connor. I just gotta say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So part of the reason, part of my emotional frustration is because I can't fight Doobie.
Okay. All right. So,
but to be clear, part of this though, really quickly,
okay.
just
go ahead. Here's what we'll do. We'll let Doobie respond, then Aris, then
I thought
Polar.
I was next.
Hold on, Doobie, Aris, Polar. Sorry, Vadim, and then Polar.
What?
Okay, I just got to say, so Connor and I might.
I didn't say you were next. I never said you were next. I literally never said.
You did.
No, I didn't.
You did.
No, I didn't. I guarantee you. I said it was Polar, and then it was Vadim afterwards.
All right. Okay, fine.
Okay.
You wouldn't be upset about this if you're a Sigma male. Okay, so Connor and I might fight, right? So we would disagree. We might punch each other. Then afterwards, 10 minutes later, we'll be having beers. Right? We'll be fine. Right? This is how guys hash it out sometimes. I think it's totally fine.
Okay, all right. Aris, quickly respond. Doobie, you can't respond after this because we got to move on. So Aris, respond to Doobie. Then we're gonna go we'll go to Vadim and then Polar.
Okay, so as like when you heard the way Doobie was talking, right? To me, it just demonstrated that the core of what a fraternity is about is it's not about a brotherhood; it's about exclusion. So what Doobie is talking about, right, is demonstrating that if you're like sitting here and you're watching this and your version of masculinity is not based in this like toxic stereotype of having, you know, to never be in control of it, that you always have to be in control of your emotions. Okay. You need to take some abuse to man up and all that shit. If that's not your version of masculinity, then frats are not for you, I guess, right? Especially a frat with Doobie. So like they exclude effeminate men, they exclude gay men, they exclude poor men, right? Just look at the classist element to this as well, right? They cost thousands. Frats cost like thousands a year, right? It leads to preferential treatment and being part of this exclusive quote unquote like boys club later on, right? Same thing for sororities. So like exclusion, and there's a place for exclusion, but it is not on a university campus. Like exclusions have no place in an academic environment, and it's just the antithesis to intellectual and learning.
Okay.
So it's just a time that we just stop with that shit.
So we're gonna go to Vadim, then Polar. I'm gonna jump in, and then and Bastiat, you'll be next, right? And I want you to respond to everything that I'm saying actually. So Vadim, then Polar.
Okay, so I don't know what Doobie and Connor have encountered within their lives. Perhaps they've been in certain situations that they don't want to feel ashamed about, and I'm not necessarily saying that they should, but at the same time, I've got to be real here. I feel like saying that that experiencing some sort of situation where several guys are beating the shit out of you, and that being somehow like beneficial, that being something that really is a good way to allow people to mature and sort of come to grips with adulthood. I just think it's fucking pathetic. And I mean, I just have to be completely 100% real here. Like, I do not think that is remotely a constructive way to deal with reality and to usher your loved ones, your friends, your brothers into adulthood. Like it's so fucking toxic. It's just so
okay.
It's just so
all right. No. How can you not let me go after that?
Because I'm not finished. You're welcome to go after I finish. So the last thing that I want to say, and I really don't have much more to say, is that there's so many options that are more constructive than that. We can teach people to, like, as a society, not to rely on barbaric, dumb fucking shit like that.
Oh my god.
Okay, so next we're gonna go to Polar. Then I'm gonna jump in, and then we'll go to Bastian and Connor.
Okay.
Listen, there are so many things that were said right then that are just so wrong. Okay, so one, you can compare binge drinking to like people in France and then people who aren't. Like 4 out of 5 fraternity and sorority members are binge drinkers in comparison to other college students that are like at a 2 out of 5. So to say that like it's a problem either way is just not true. Also, when you talk about, oh yeah, people will get used to it, it's like frats are a good way for people to learn how to like curb their behavior and become responsible with this. That's not really true either. Like among dudes at age 35, like 45% of like fraternity members reported 2 or more alcohol usage disorder symptoms compared to 32.7% of non people like men who weren't in fraternities. Like it's just really weird to say that like it helps you curb this and it helps you learn how to become like more responsible with alcohol in the future. Doesn't seem to be true. But okay, I'll have a big but. If getting the shit out of me, like getting the shit beat out of me, is what it takes to get a girlfriend in college, consider me a frat member, baby. Let's go.
All right. No, buddy, you're handsome enough. You'll be fine, buddy. You'll be fine.
Seriously.
I'll let Bossy go first, and then I'll go. Then Connor.
I want to send a guppy into Shark Fest.
I just want to. I want to say. I guess the point that Vadim made. I can relate to it on one level because I've never had any of those kind of violent experiences. And if I were put in a position where I was faced with the choice to engage in them, or be subject to them, I wouldn't want to do that. But that said, I don't really think there's anything necessarily wrong with, consensual violence between adults. If they want to engage in that, if they find some virtue in that. And I can see just to be clear, yeah, sure. But I mean, I think we're talking about something that also is a little different. It's not exactly a scheduled
group of people
match.
you live with beating the shit out of you isn't consensual violence.
If you agree to this as part of the admission into this organization,
what if they said you got to fuck them to get into the organization? Is that consensual sex?
Look, if we're talking about adults here making decisions and you are free to leave at any time, all right, this isn't a job. All right, we're not having the coconuts debate here. We're saying I need
a house in here to tell you what coercion is.
LSP, where is this fraternity?
We're saying here, just to be clear,
where is this particular
I'm going to show a different here. What we're saying here is, if you want to be in our club, you have to do this ritual. All right, I wouldn't want to do that ritual. All right, but if that club is something that I don't need to join, for example, to pass school or to get through it, it's optional, right? It might benefit me in some way, but it's totally optional. Then, ultimately it's up to people like Counterpoints to decide whether or not maybe there's some virtue or value in that. And beyond that, I do want to say that while, again, I personally would not find any of this violence to be my own cup of tea, I mean, there is something to be said for facing the reality that violence is also a part of the human experience, and that, it's this kind of ritual business that people have been talking about. I mean, look, it ain't my lived experience, but clearly it is a lived experience that a lot of people then look back on sort of fondly. So provided people are not forced into these institutions,
coping mechanisms,
there's room to improve them. But to
power dynamics.
No,
power dynamics. You're completely disregarding that.
To say that's just a coping mechanism, to say that all of these people have been abused, is to deny their lived experience and the value of their lived experience.
Fuck lived experiences.
To do that, no. To do that completely is ridiculous. To do that sometimes, sure, but to do it categorically is wrong.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna go. Amazing, and then we'll have Connor afterwards. So I'm on Eris's side of this, and so I know I'm on good ground. So I think fraternities have had a tortured history. If you actually look into them, they got popular after the Civil War, right? When they started letting the middle class and black people into universities, right? That was a problem. So they formed these little groups, right? These network powerful groups where they were exclusionary. Sometimes they had it written into law, into their bylaws, that you had to be of the Aryan race, right? Or have the Aryan blood or whatever, right? And it took years. It took years for them to start letting people in. They resisted every step of the fucking way, right? You can still see the social inequities now, like in the how there's it's racially split, right? You'll have a racially integrated campus, but then these fraternities are mostly all white because they'll have their tokens in there, of course, right? You know, to keep up appearances. I'm not surprised, Boss, that you're talking about the networks that people have formed. Of course, they create those networks. That was part of the whole deal. We'll create these networks. We'll focus in we'll use our power, right, to raise ourselves up and increase our social standing, right? And we want to be exclusionary because we don't want people who can't add to that and who are below us. That's fraternities in their entirety. And then beyond that, I agree with Eris in that like this single sex environments leads to such toxic behavior. I can't speak to how sororities act, but in terms of fraternities, right? The abuse that they do to individual members, right? That we apparently are calling male bonding now. Fuck that. No thanks, right? I'd rather be soft than fucking abuse people, physically abuse people because I think they're stepped out of line. No, we are adults at this point. They're young adults at this point, and now we're telling them that it's okay to solve their problems of violence. Absolutely fucking not. And then there's the actual behavior of these the other incidences, right? So yes, there's the excessive drinking, which is where I started off this conversation, but there's also the rampant misogyny, right? There was one, this happened a few years ago. There was one fraternity on a campus that put up a banner, right, on opening day, right, like opening day, moving in day, right, for freshmen, saying yes means no, or no means no means yes, and yes means anal, right? They put that up for incoming girls to see as they were coming through. Wonderful human beings, right? We've seen them do racist chants on buses, right? There was that one Sigma something whatever, right? That had that racist chant on that bus. We've seen there was one I'd have to look it up again. I was looking at a document talking about this Jewish fraternity, a traditional Jewish fraternity. They started looking at their their communications, their emails, right? Rampant misogyny, rampant Islamophobia, right? And rampant anti-Palestinian views. When you concentrate people like this, right, of this demographic and be exclusionary, then you'll see this type of behavior. It's guaranteed to happen, right? So yeah, fuck that. All right, so Connor, you can respond to me. Boss said you can respond to me. Then Vadim, yeah, we can go on there. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have to defend anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, rape culture.
Get on it.
No, that's not gonna fucking. All right, that's not gonna fucking happen. All right. So, anyways,
the line out of beating the shit out of little kids.
Not little kids. Jesus Christ. All right. Anyways,
I'm sorry,
you guys love your straw men, don't you? Okay. Anyways, so all right, let's talk about it. Pathetic that violence is a part of adulthood. No. It's not. The fraternity that I joined was specifically rooted in violence. The military, law enforcement, they're all rooted in violence. If you don't know how to commit violence, whether for justified or unjustified fucking purposes, then you're not going to survive in these environments. So to just like, this is actually one of the things that I really hate about fucking European civilians. I know that nobody here is a European civilian, but they've literally just been like cucked out of the caveman brain. They no longer have the ability to even conceptualize violence as like a normal human experience.
Hold on, sorry.
Anyway,
Seriously, the Europeans.
Hold on.
No.
Am I
Europeans,
going, or is this debate time?
No. I'm just saying. Look, is it Europeans who have the most blood-soaked continent on Earth? Europeans who started multiple world wars. Europeans with their endless imperial expansionism, right? And the violence against everyone else on the planet. Europeans, they've forgotten violence.
Thank you for recognizing the independent agency of Europeans. I appreciate that. I mean, I ain't European, but it's
now appreciate that. Yes, Prime. Those Europeans who now a stiff breeze will knock over.
Okay,
yes, those
all right,
Europeans.
Sure, all right.
All right, anyways. So Eris brought up the fact that like fucking necessarily like fraternities are going to be like misogynistic and hyper masculine and all that kind of shit. I don't give a shit. Form a fucking femme fraternity. Have fucking SDL be the fucking chairman. He'll be a fucking great fraternity fucking person. Have gay fraternities. Have basically
So let's
if your
answer
masculinity, if your
misogyny with
masculinity,
misandry. That doesn't
okay,
make any sense.
is this my turn to talk or is it everybody else's turn to talk?
I'm sorry,
Think
Connor.
about it like a little bitch.
I waited 20 minutes for all of you
I'm
guys
sorry,
to
was
say
I
what the fuck
mansplaining you?
you
I'm so sorry.
And LSP, how is that not toxic masculinity for you to call me a little bitch? How is that not toxic masculinity?
Yeah.
Fraternity. Why are you being so toxic right now? You fucking
all right,
hypocrite.
let Connor talk. All right, Connor, finish your
Cancel
part.
him to hell. Cancel him
If
to
you man,
hell.
I would beat you up, Connor.
Connor,
Yes.
please.
Good. I respect you more as a person. All right. So basically, all right. So basically, barbaric and dumb. Okay, well, guess what? There's this Jungian concept called the shadow, basically the fucked up impulses that are inside your head. Do you know how you conquer the shadow? By fucking exploring it. And sometimes as a man, I'm just going to admit to it, I'm supposedly a very smart person. I've done incredibly dumb shit. Not because my society told me to, or because Prime said that, like, in order to get into the cult, I had to suck his wiener in order to fucking be one of the cool kids. None of that shit happened. I, of my own volition, a dumb monkey floating in the fucking void, decided to do dumb and problematic shit because I wanted to explore my own fucking testosterone. Yeah, seriously. So somebody said violence is lived experience. Why would you fucking deny people that? Yeah, 100%. Are we just giving up that there's like violent institutions that exist in order to perpetuate society? Are we fucking pacifists at this point? What the fuck is this? All right, and then finally, final point, and then I'll shut the fuck up for another 20 minutes. Basically, so Mencius Medbug is a dissonant right fucking philosopher, and he's wrong about a lot of things. But he is right about one thing, which is basically that you form your fucking habits, and then your habits form you. I am not interested in giving up the violent parts of my brain. I am not interested in giving up the caveman, dumb fuck, red meat eating fucking weirdo that is the lived human male experience. And yes, people on this channel, that does involve some level of consensual violence, as my lawyer friend Bastiat said. And with that, I yield and I shut the fuck up for another 20 minutes.
Bastiat, go ahead.
I
My
appreciate
best
that.
friends, I got into some pretty serious fist high school and later on. Like, yeah, they were my best friends. Like, yeah, we fought it out. And then afterwards, yeah, me and Tony, best friend of the world. You can check me out at Revolutionary Wrestling Podcast with him. But that's just the way it is.
Okay, go ahead, Bastiat.
I guess
want to point out that he's been drinking this entire time.
Yeah. Were you in a frat, KOE?
He was the frat.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
No, and I'm also just sipping. I'm just sipping on the Dalmore Dominion single malt
Okay, all right.
Scotch whiskey. So I'm not knocking back anything. It'd be a sin to do so. Just a little something to.
Okay,
Bastiat.
All right.
Bastiat.
Few points to respond to. So I might need a minute or two here. So as far as violence goes, first of all, I am not saying that I think violence is good. I guess I'm saying that I think violence should be, between, again, like consenting adults should be treated with, something approaching the way we treat sex between consenting adults, which is to say that our approval of it, our distaste for it, our disgust with it is frankly irrelevant as long as the parties have consented to it. And while we recognize there are certainly power dynamics at play, and while we also recognize that sometimes what may be a power dynamic may, turn into, like an assault, a deprivation of consent, fundamentally, I would view it as something similar to that. So again, if you're consenting to it, that to me is what matters. So that's one thing as far as violence goes. I don't think, though, that it's our place to just say, okay, if two people have agreed to engage in that, well, we think it's disgusting and not constructive. I agree with you, and mostly, but it ain't my business. Beyond that, I think that Prime, you made a lot of, I think, very very compelling points that I don't know that I'd even deny a lot of them. I mean, like, for example, when you talk about the racist history of fraternities in the United States, you're probably completely right. I wouldn't deny that. at the same time, I guess I would also think about, when I did speech and debate, I ran into a lot of people in fraternities and sororities, and that included, in particular, a lot of people from Black fraternities who formed these organizations, not just, in response to exclusion from, I guess, white fraternities, but also as a means of self-advancement. These organizations of mutual aid, mutual assistance, and they probably had their own problematic hazing rituals. I don't know, but these are organizations that were formed in response to racism. So I think that the structure itself is not necessarily, and that's also not to say that it was just response to racism. Also, the same impulses that animate white people who want to get together and form fraternities, I'm sure animate Black people who want to form fraternities too. But that's one thing I'd say, is that it's not just a history of just simple racist exclusion. That's one element of it. Something else I'd say is that it seems like a lot of the problems that we have with fraternities also seem to go down to their the fact that they're sort of specially privileged in a lot of schools, in that that a lot of schools, including public schools, will give them space on their campuses and access to certain facilities. But I got to say that while I might have a problem with that, I might be willing to hear somebody out who's going to make an argument that says, look, in our public school, we shouldn't be tolerating the existence of these institutions on our property. We shouldn't be favoring them specially. Sure. But I mean, would we have a problem with the institution you described, Prime, that's hanging the sign off of its balcony? The disgusting sign you mentioned. I mean, suppose we kick them off campus, right? And it just becomes a voluntary non-campus group of people who perhaps go to the same school, but otherwise don't receive any special favors. I mean, certainly we're not talking about abolishing just private clubs generally, or trying to take state action against private clubs generally that are behaving in disgusting ways, right? So I guess I think that's maybe one issue, that if you want to do something about them, maybe we can have an argument as to whether the public should be supporting this in any way in public schools and universities. And then I guess one other thing I'd say is that, to the argument about, I'd rather be soft. Look, I mean, I guess I would too, in the way that, you were framing it, but if we're all adults, I think that's, again, got to be a choice for people to make. And while I might, for example, and I'm not trying to be belittling to you, counterpoints, I might be totally comfortable with my masculinity without exploring those certain violent elements of maybe my psyche. I wouldn't say that it is wrong for you to want to explore that. I think that's sort of a decision that you've got to make.
Well, so you can rush my fraternity, or you can rush SDL's fraternity, and I'm not gonna hate you either way.
So I'm
rushing SDL.
I'll respond, and then I'll let Polar in. One, I think if you, like, for instance, you kicked frats off campus, they wouldn't be able to recruit, right? Like, that would be it'd be very difficult for them to recruit. So a good way to shut them down. I think that Black frats, for instance, were formed in response to the racism of white frats being shut out, right? Like, they wanted to integrate these frats, wanted to be part of the group, but they were literally shut out. That's why we have Black frats in the first place, right?
But why do we have them today, though? Still,
oh no, because these things just continue. No, fair enough. But like,
there are other organizing impulses too, though, are there not? Like,
that could be fair. No. That's I think that's a fair point. That, like, just because it started in one way doesn't mean that, like, the motivations of, like, individuals today are the exact same thing, right? These things can evolve. I think you're absolutely correct on that point. However, we can see these patterns continue throughout history, these echoes, right? The article I had linked to you guys and put in chat was talking about, like, how Greek societies don't even keep track of their racial composition, right? Which gives them possible deniability. Like, if they actually want to tackle these things, they'd be putting policies in place to actually tackle these things, right? Like, there was one frat that used to say, like, oh yeah, you had to have Aryan blood to be full Aryan blood to be part of the frat. Eventually, right after they been shamed enough, right, then they replace it with socially acceptable. Right, you have to be socially acceptable. What does that mean, right? There's a pattern that goes through history, right? These things there has to be a breaking point for these things, and they don't happen if there's not a specific action taken to break these cycles. And it might just be that these things are have run their course, right? And we can organize other groups, right, to have that camaraderie. We can do that, right? We can figure out some other way of handling it.
Can I just
I
ask
wanna
you
push
one
back.
thing about your position, Prime?
Okay, ask me one question,
Just one
and then
thing.
I gotta go Polar, and then Eris. I'll go to you after that. Okay, please.
And I'll
What
stop
about-
for a while.
You
I
have your
just
hand
want
up? I didn't even see your hand up. Okay.
You said I was next, like
What?
whatever.
Okay. All right.
Well,
Go ahead.
whatever.
All right.
I don't
It's fine.
care.
Sure.
All right. Prime. So I just want to ask, like, suppose there's an institution, right? Like, let's call, the United States government that was conceived in, with a lot of ideas that were noble and good, and also a lot of ideas that were bad and racist and exclusionary and oppressive, right? I guess, while I would totally accept the argument of, yeah, we need to do things to improve these institutions, I'm not sure whether you're saying, like, these institutions should be changed in some ways, or basically these institutions are irredeemable. And the reason I bring up the United States government is that, as somebody on the left, presumably you want to use a government that was conceived in a lot of things good and also a lot of things bad to improve, to do a lot of things that you would view as good, right? You want to redeem that institution, presumably, and do social welfare programs and things like that. So I guess what I would say is it your goal that these institutions, these fraternities should be kind of like eliminated, or that they should just be changed in some way?
That's not everything is equally redeemable. I think the United States, I want to hope the United States has all the tools necessary, considering we can amend our constitution, right? Considering we have the vote, such as it is, that we have the abilities to actually handle these things. That doesn't mean a private organization that has lived on these exclusionary tactics has an equal chance to change these things. So we have to take these things on a case-by-case basis, right? So we'll go to Polar, then we'll go to Eris. I was going to go to Vadim, but he left, but Polar, then Eris.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with a route that I think these things can be changed. Maybe like I think schools do give certain privileges to frats. I don't think schools are oblivious. I think they know what's to a certain extent what's going on. I think there's value in having that networking connection. I think there's a lot of value in that. But I hope that those things are changeable, because maybe one of these days an older version of myself will be walking down. It's like, hey, why not rush at this fraternity that's based? Whether that be, probably won't be Counterpoints' fraternity, probably won't be STL's fraternity, but maybe we can get a black anime fraternity going or some shit like that. That'd be kind of fun.
Prime fraternity.
Anime fans can be really fucking toxic too, though. Go ahead.
No, I'll say that. No, I don't doubt that. But man, maybe one of these days.
Okay, let's go to Erish. You want to push back on me, and when Vadim comes back, he can jump in.
Oh, I didn't want to push back against you. Bastia was talking about consent. So I want to push it back against the idea that consent somehow makes everything okay. I think that's like a really flawed idea that's been like spread, like, I don't know, amongst like liberals, and it can cause like real harm, like, and it's just like completely incorrect, right? You can't actually legally, in both the United States and Canada, consent to violence. That's not actually a thing. And you can't actually, and you also, just as much as you can't consent to being a slave. So if you've ever had someone like sign a contract to be your slave, that's considered null and void, right? It's not legit. So anyways, there are some issues with consent associated with that. But in general, when it comes to the masculinity stuff, is that these like men are not who they were 60 or 70 years ago. There's a different idea of what masculinity can be now. And I think like a lot of these ideas are still like fraternities are still holding on to those toxic masculine traits that hurt men more than anyone else, right? Like, men are more at risk of violence. Men are more likely to kill themselves because they don't live to that standard. So like they don't live up to this like stereotypical male standard. So like we shouldn't be like perpetuating it, right? I think the way for frats to survive is to be more inclusive, rather than really like harping on like the toxic masculine aspect. And I also want to say that I don't think brats should be banned. I just don't think they should be supported by unis or exemplified as part of like the university experience, And one more thing before I'm finished. I don't know why it's surprising that a monarchist dislikes an institution that glorifies Athenian culture, which simultaneously loves democracy and hates women. Okay, that's all.
So let's
me there.
I will so I will let KOE jump in because he hasn't coming for a while. Then we'll go to you, boss out. But I reserve the right to let Vadim cut in when he comes back.
Sure.
Right?
Respect. Yeah.
Now, Eris, in regards to 2P consenting, that we actually do have mutual combat laws, so people can. If it wasn't for that, you couldn't even have like martial arts training facilities. So I issue with that. But what I will say is, I think you're kind of a snake in the grass here, Eris. You're really trying to get rid of the eternity system so you can replace it with the medieval guild system. I'm
no,
on
they caught me.
I'm well aware.
They caught me.
But yeah, in terms of a interesting experience, I caught you. I know. Yes. But it just something I wanted to say a little earlier, and it's kind of like with counterpoints. Something he was saying, like in terms of these hardening experiences that people do go through in their youth. I mean, you can train martial arts, you can do all kinds of different really heavy mountainous regions, but the thing that you really don't want to do is be a guppy in shark-filled waters. So that's something you got to keep in mind. So, yes, you can be the peaceful, austere, I am trying to seek nirvana, but there's a lot of assholes out in that world. And because I think there's like a 2-second gap, I yield back to the rest of you beautiful people.
Okay, I was going to go to Basia, but assuming Vadim is coming, and we'll let Vadim go. Oh. Back. Vadim.
All right.
Okay.
I'll be quick, and I'll stop as soon as he gets back.
Sure.
I guess I just want to say that I think KOE, who it is a tragedy tonight that we have to put that we're basically trying to stuff a cable internet connection's worth of man into a 56K dial-up modem of a connection. It's a tragedy. But anyway, Vadim, I see you're back, so I don't know if you want to go.
Vadim, please.
My new computer shows up tomorrow, so I will be in my glory after that.
Okay.
Right on.
So,
I mean, anything that I'm going to say now is just like from like 10 minutes ago. My mind was sort of like scrambled eggs thinking about this whole concept of consensual violence. I fucking grew up in New York, dude. I had fistfights by the time that I was like 14, 15. It's not like I've led a life of free of violence and shit like that. But consensual violence to me, that's like boxing. That's going into a ring. There's certain rules that are agreed upon, and it's not like allowing like 50 guys to kick you in the balls until you name 10 breakfast cereals from the 1980s or something like that. I guess what has me upset here is that I said it before. I called it pathetic before, but I think it's just sad. I think that I don't know, and maybe you know what? Maybe I don't. Maybe if you like counterpoints here, explain to me what his initiation rituals and hazing, whatever the fuck, was like. Maybe I would look at it differently. But I just think that there is I'm not saying that human beings should not be allowed to do such things, but I cannot be convinced that that sort of behavior is really truly conducive to making people wiser, better human beings. And the last thing that I'll say is just that, like, when I hear this stuff, what really makes me sad about it is that it makes me feel like, we're talking about toxic masculinity here, and I feel like maybe these things are so ingrained in you that they were part of your past, and you can't accept the fact that there was something truly unhealthy about them and that are not productive, like truly a good way for human beings to conduct themselves, and it's not healthy behavior, dude.
Everything you just said, Vadim, seems to apply equally to sexual activity that we disagree with, like particularly perhaps bondage or sadomasochistic.
I'm fine with that.
You say you're fine with that, and yet every single argument you made is the kind of argument that a more conservative person might say in response to the thought of being beaten for sexual pleasure. It's the same stuff, the same argument. This can't be healthy. It makes me sad. I find it disgusting. I didn't need the only
because in those relationships,
no. You think it made it
in those relationships there are clear rules. There are rules.
Are they?
Yes,
rules in sexual relationships are as clear as you say they are? Because I got to say, especially as we've seen on campus, that doesn't seem to be the case.
Well,
I think what you
have you been in a BDSM relationship? I mean, do you like there are safe words?
I pick a weird time.
The clear rules of our dungeon sometimes, are not so clear. Okay.
Oh,
look, all kidding aside, I think what you're saying though is ultimately, to me, amounts to a kind of liberal feeling about violence that conservatives hold towards sex. And what I'm saying is these are two ways that, again, assuming everybody consents, people interact with one another. And to say that just like it's wiser, better. Sure, it's probably wiser and better in some ways to refrain from certain sexual practices, and yet that doesn't matter. They feel good. We want to do them, whatever. I mean, it's not really just not your business.
It's a matter of submitting to a chaotic sort of trial by fire and a situation in which you have some level of autonomy where, again, there are safe words in BDSM relationships and in sexual relationships like that. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to say that counterpoints should not have been legally able to participate in those things. I'm saying that I can't be convinced that these things are actually beneficial or just to put it simply, good things for human beings to endure. I think that they, at the end of the day, are not constructive and that they're scarring.
Let's go.
But if they were fucking, it'd be all right.
Let's go to Connor.
Yeah. I was about to say, I think I've gotten mentioned a bunch. So I think I can bring up some positive examples that would be more positive but then I want to bring up the negative examples as well. So positive example, I was a part of the Boy Scouts. I'm actually an Eagle Scout, believe it or not, which is the highest rank that you can have inside the Boy Scouts. And basically one of the things that we did when I was 15 years old is we did 52 miles on the Appalachian Trail, and we lived out of backpacks, and we had 1 week to complete it. That was a terrible trial by fire. My feet hurt like a motherfucker. We were walking 10 to 13 miles per day. It was uphill. It was downhill. It was raining. It was pouring. There were animals. There were bears, all that kind of bullshit. I would see that as a toxically masculine trial by fire, maybe not necessarily hazing, but an expeditionary, stereotypically masculine process through which I learned a lot about myself and the people around me. And here's the thing that you kind of mentioned earlier. That the thing that's missing is the trial by fire is the lack of control. Lack of control is the point of a trial by fire. Not being able to control all the variables that are immediately around you and seeing how you psychologically dealing with those things is exactly the point of trials by fire and gauntlets and hazing rituals and all that kind of stuff.
Visit a Bastius dungeon.
Since I talked about the positive,
then we should all be fine with all this bullshit that we're talking about. That with that kills kids in these in these frats.
You brought up an important point. You brought up an important point. There should be rules. That's what you said. There should be rules. So, for instance, in a BDSM relationship, there should be rules. Same thing in a hazing incident or a trial by fire incident, there should be rules. There were rules that we followed. Every single kid had like 4 days worth of food on them. We all had a battle buddy. We all, we were limited in the amount of miles that we traveled per day. We always made camp before dusk. We always kept our food in a bear, literally like a bear bag that you hang up in the trees so the bears don't try to raid your tent in order to get your food. There were rules about our trial by fire. And the same thing applies. So, for instance, let me get to my negative example. In Marine Corps boot camp. Marine Corps boot camp is an entire, that's the fraternity that I was a part of. So that fraternity, I will actually concede, is completely toxic, and most human beings should not be a part of it. But that doesn't mean that no human beings should be a part of it. There's different kinds of human beings. They serve different societal purposes. Certain people are going to be attracted to violence. I was one of those people. That's why I joined a violent fraternity. And there are rules to Marine Corps hazing. So, for instance, they're only allowed to PT you a certain amount of time, which means physically train. They're only allowed to individual train you for a certain amount of time, which basically means that they scream at you, make you feel like shit, and also do physical training. You have a certain amount of sleep hours per night. There's a certain amount of caloric intake. There's a certain amount of all these kinds of things. So basically, like, what I'm saying is to completely vilify either violence or lack of control, I feel is like a very unnuanced take on this. So if you want to talk about adding rules to situations that you don't like, I'm all for it. I don't want kids getting killed, and I don't want them dying from binge drinking. But to just completely dismiss the institution or the experience, I think, is unfair.
Look, I don't, but at the same time, we are tying all of this to hazing rituals gone out of control, and so
you don't think
I guess
Marine Corps boot camp is a hazing ritual out of control?
Well, look, yeah, it probably
He's got
is.
a point there.
My point is just that I mean, I guess it's like, I don't know what your guys' experiences are. I don't know what the particular rules are of the just kind of situations that you've been in the past, but by virtue of the fact that we are here talking about hazing rituals gone out of control, it seems like there is some sort of justification being made for that environment that creates that shit.
Yeah, so would you like hazing rituals that are in control?
I don't. I honestly, I think that hazing rituals,
you don't value them at all.
I mean, like, yeah, no, I don't think that they serve. Like, I think that there are other ways in which people can kind of still like get, I guess, down and dirty, and still get something more beneficial from them, and not put them in a situation where they are putting their potential life on the fucking line, and where shit could go haywire and some kid could just die of like drinking way too much alcohol, or, you know, internal bleeding. I don't know. I feel like it's not that much to ask for some sort of I don't know, controls on these things.
Connor, that analogy is so stupid, right? Like, it makes no sense, because training academics is a little different than training soldiers, right? So I don't actually think that, I think there is a value to hazing, right? I just don't think it's like necessary or useful in an academic environment. And I also want to make an earlier point when we were talking about whether or not consensual violence is like a thing. In Canada, I did link some primary sources alluding to R.V. Sullivan and R.V. Jobidon, so which demonstrate that, yeah, consensual violence is not a thing when you are intending specifically to cause bodily harm. So
how did you guys produce George St. Pierre? Like, how is this possible?
That's a French name, and I don't want to talk about the French.
I don't know how you can look. I mean, I'm not even making a legal argument here, although I think KOE made it very clear that we can envision certain types of consensual violence. I mean, you might say with intent to do bodily harm, perhaps. I don't know if people who do hazing rituals even, you know, intend to do bodily harm so much as they intend to do the ritual stuff that, you know. But I mean, at the same time, whatever your intent may be, we know that, like, karate, boxing, hazing rituals will often lead to physical harm. So I feel like we may be, you know, sort of
but intent's important
around the issue here. I don't know that it really should be with respect to whether people should be free to make those decisions for themselves. And I mean, whatever the law may be, you know, I'll admit I don't know all the contours of that law. I mean, why shouldn't an individual be able to make those kinds of decisions for themselves the same way they would about sex? Should people be able to make decisions about tattoos or about the consumption of poisonous
we have
substances?
Limits based on sex too, right? Like, we don't allow children to make decisions.
Yeah, but
on
because
sex.
We're not talking about children.
We're talking about the issue of consent, and you're saying that there's a whole field.
But my point is that consent sometimes is not really consent.
Yeah. So in what situation though? Right? Because I agree, like, children, you know, they can't consent, right? But if we're talking about adults, what are the situations where like you categorically just can't consent to something?
I actually think that's a really good topic, but that's such a huge topic that like it would just take over.
All right.
Just real quickly, I want to say, Bastiat, my kind of argument here has never been that this stuff should be made illegal. It's just been that it's just unproductive. It doesn't lead to fulfilling outcomes, and that there's something kind of underneath it all that I think that psychologically that I think people should investigate, and that it's not healthy behavior basically.
And I wouldn't like again, I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but like everything you've just said, along with pretty much everything else you've said, just seems like the kind of stuff people say anytime I might say, well, I like, I kind of like that picture of Lola Bunny, or, I kind of like getting tied up and slapped around a little bit now and then. I mean, somebody will tell me, well, hey, look, I mean, I don't want to put you in jail for it, but you got to tell everybody about it. I mean, can't you just, I don't care what you do in your bedroom, but I mean, you got to flaunt it like that.
Yeah, I think it's a false equivalency. Like you're making a false equivalency there.
You say it's a false equivalency, but I don't think it is a false equivalency. I don't think it is.
Can I provide
it is. So we'll go consenting adults that you just don't like, and as a result, you think it ought to be pushed to the fringes, and that may be fine, but I don't.
The Lola Bunny thing.
Statements you've made have been equally applicable in the conservative direction against sex, and I don't know why you want to say.
We'll go to Polar, who's been waiting patiently, and then LSP if you'd like to say something.
I should get a chance to. I mean, I'll wait until after them.
Okay,
but
all right, respond, and then we'll go to Polar, LSP.
I mean, you know what? Let them respond first. Let me just fabricate it or think about a response.
Sure. Polar.
I can think of a situation. I don't know. I didn't necessarily hear all this, but like highly coercive situations, I think we could like think of examples where that person really can't consent. If I put a gun up to your head and I'm like, hey, I want you to eat this sandwich, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna eat this sandwich, and like, if you don't eat this sandwich, I'm gonna kill you. And it's like, are you really like consenting to that?
Sure.
So that's probably an example, but that's probably an extreme one as well. But sometimes extreme coercion can lead to
just to be clear, I totally agree with that. I would say that just same way with sex. I mean, if you are, something you're doing that would make it clear that you're not consenting to sex, and I'm certainly saying the same kind of situations would apply to violence. I'm just saying that if you can imagine a consensual sexual relationship, or a consensual sexual encounter, I think you can imagine a consensual violent encounter too.
Well, hopefully we can all imagine something consensual. Oh, holy shit. But
that's all martial arts training. All martial arts training isn't an element of this consensual violence. Like without that, you don't have dojos, you don't have gyms, you don't have boxing gyms, you just don't have most martial arts training without at least some level of that.
Okay, let's go with LSP, if you have something to say.
And then the pause.
Okay, firstly, Bastiat, you stop shoving your fucking Lola Bunny obsession in our fucking face. It's weird. It's inappropriate. We passed that topic up. Secondly, consent is just the worst word here. There is a way we can make this analogous to BDSM that's appropriate, because there are certain relationships that are fundamentally toxic, and they can even be toxic and sex-based. And you can still have two parties who consent to a relationship, or even a sexual relationship, who consent to sexual acts between each other, even though like the power dynamics are such that level of consent isn't really. It's a different kind of consent. This is hard to like articulate, but if I would apply this to like fraternities too. Yeah, there's ways you can like make violence or hazing rituals that are probably. I'm gonna go like on a limb here and say maybe you can make them healthy. The issue is the power dynamic between a person who wants to get into a fraternity and the person who's going to construct a hazing ritual differ so vastly that it ends up having like some negative deleterious effects on people. Such that like a lot of fraternities want to step down on them, such that sometimes people die from these hazing rituals. So it's analogous to BDSM in the sense that we can recognize toxic relationships where even if two people are capable of consent, they're not the form of consent is kind of consent in name only. Does that make sense?
Well, I just would be curious what you mean by consent name only, because I agree that there can be relationships that are consensual and still bad. Like, personally, I wouldn't want to engage in any of these consensual violent relationships myself. I feel like they would be bad.
Do you think people
I
could
don't know
be
what
in,
you
like,
mean
sexual...
by consent?
Well,
Like,
there
if you
are
just mean
people
not consent, I would agree that there are situations that aren't consent and that are. But
well, toxic relationships. So there are relationships that are hard to quit. There are relationships that are toxic for people's mental well-being, even physical well-being, that they can't get away from for whatever reason. They convince themselves of certain things about it that makes them think it's okay, that everybody else from the outside can see this is not a good thing. So even if they are an adult who could consent to an act of sex with this other person, the fundamentals of the relationship are such that it's unhealthy. And I would apply the same analogy to fraternities, that you could still have fraternities which arguably could have hazing rituals that are healthy and constructive. You could also have fraternities that are completely toxic and backwards. And I would apply the same argument there, that it's probably not a good thing to foster those kinds of environments.
I guess I wouldn't even disagree with your point that, like, maybe even most of these, like, violent situations are, like, toxic and bad. I just don't know that the toxicity itself, like, if somebody has decided that, like, look, I find part of this situation toxic, I don't like the violent element of it, but I do like the social element. I don't know. I wouldn't like that. And I would totally understand not wanting to have the public sponsor that, but I don't know that we should then seek to say, well, nobody should be able to enter into relationships like that. Because I guess there's a difference between, to me, I feel like we have to be able to, one, make a difference, acknowledge the difference between a toxic relationship, a bad relationship, and then, like, rape, for example, and then, or imprisonment or whatever.
But
and then
there's
be able to, I acknowledge there's a difference.
There's a spectrum, like, between these points of, like, rape and just a really bad relationship. I
get what you're saying, but maybe it's not a clean duality, right? Yeah. I guess what I would say is I would acknowledge that there's certainly a spectrum in some sense, but at the same time, if you believe, like, I guess this is kind of a core values thing that I'm about to say, if you think that adults do need to be at some level free to make decisions for themselves, and that's like a core part of what you believe, then there does have to be some kind of cutoff where you say, look, this person has agency, they're capable of making decisions, even if we don't like them, even if we think they're toxic and bad, we still acknowledge that they can make them, and therefore don't, seek to stop them, even if we might try and persuade them that they're bad.
The cutoff point is how hard they fetishize Lola Bunny. Like, that's the cutoff point. You're not capable of any meaningful introspection if you hit your dick hard for Lola Bunny.
Let's go to Vadim.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to respond to what Bastiat said, because it's just the whole connection between BDSM relationships, and you know what, LSP said a lot of what I would have said. I guess maybe it's a corny thing to bring up, but I can't help but think of Fight Club. I mean, like, if you look at that environment that they're creating, I know it's like a melodramatic, hyperbolized version of frat culture and just toxic masculinity in general, but would you look at that and say, oh, that's healthy human behavior? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I want to address agree. This directly. A bunch of anti-capitalist,
can I get a...
but I wouldn't resent their ability to. Yeah.
So basically, this is beautifully analogized. This is actually perfect. So what I'm effectively saying is that for Fight Club, I have no problem with the fraternity. I have no problem with consensual fighting. I have no problems with men figuring out their limits. I have no problem with them being challenged. I have no problem with them basically being in a situation that doesn't have control. What I do have problems with is they're fighting in a room that has a cement floor. They're not wearing pads. There's no doctors. There's no hand wraps. There's no medical professionals. There's no smelling salts. And basically, like you said, like, I mean, it's a cult, and, you know, obviously they end up being, you know, and prim terrorists by the end of it. But at the same time, my problem is not with the fraternal organization or all of these positive benefits that I'm talking about. It's the fact that it's out of control and there are no rules. So one of the things that was brought up earlier was basically like, oh, these foster like a toxic environment that like just ends up killing people or whatever. Well, I mean, I would be curious. How many people have been killed in BDSM sex acts over the past 150 years? Like, probably a shitload more of people than people who were killed in fraternity hazing incidents. So again, like it's the power dynamics, the consent, the rules, all of these things very easily parallel. And here's one more thing too, because you keep asking whether or not it's healthy. I would never say that my Marine Corps experience was healthy. I would never say that my binge drinking was healthy. I would never say that my fraternal experiences were healthy. I was just saying that I value them, and they're an important part of what creates me as a human being.
So I want to respond to that in terms of comparing BDSM relationships to a violent fraternity hazing, right? And saying again, like, the understanding that consent can be quite hazy, right? It's a very hazy subject. But like, let's understand that a fraternity is an institution, right? There's institutional power out there. Even like the act of joining them, right? Like, why would you want to join a fraternity, right? Like,
Don't.
Yeah, I would say don't, right? I would say don't. But some people think that this is important. Sometimes their parents are pressuring them to go, like, well, I went, so of course you're going to go too, right? Sometimes they feel like they'll need those networks, those powerful networks that Bossy had mentioned, and are definitely a real thing, right? To advance themselves, like, I gotta be part of this thing, right? Sometimes they feel fucking lonely, right? And they think this is the path to changing my campus life, right? To getting that girlfriend or any of those things, right? So there are pressures on there. So just to say, like, well, don't. Well, I would say that too, but it's not so simple, is it, right? Beyond that, individual BDSM relationships are not institutions. They have more of an ability to change, right, from person to person, right? BDSM as a concept has evolved like over time, right? And the BDSM community has been I think leading the way in terms of consent, in terms of like making sure your partner, despite what may happen within that scene, right, making sure that they are comfortable with it. Now, does it mean that every time things go correct? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it's not the same as an institution that is rigid and refuses to change, right? Like resisting racial integration, right? From like the antebellum period to now. Okay.
But do you think BDSM people were always like open to consent culture?
I just told you.
They probably?
I just told
don't
you.
They probably had some hangers on that were like, you're going to ruin the experience by bringing this SJW bullshit into my BDSM sex time.
I think Prime did make a good point that I would have to probably concede about one, I think, key difference, which is, though I might be able to think of some examples of this in practice, I can't really think of any like sexual institution with that kind of like social power that isn't also kind of like
the
rapey.
Porn industry. The fucking porn.
That's not the same. Hold on, that's not the same. So let's understand those different things.
Let me just try and square this. I agree that there are some institutions that are kind of resembling that, like porn, like maybe a BDSM club, but they don't have the kind of social like reach outside of them, like porn, for example. Like, I guess the connections I make in the porn industry aren't really like the sort that will carry me to new heights of society, you know, in the way that like a fraternity.
Stop. You're fucking digging a goddamn hole. Jesus fucking Christ.
All right, well, I'm telling you where I'm wrong.
No. The parallels.
I don't even see a shovel.
The parallels in this are fucking uncanny. Are you fucking kidding me? There's no social pressure that porn will carry people to new fucking heights. Dude, financially, socially, fame. You think there's none of those fucking pressures?
Yeah, that's
you don't
true.
think there's any hold on. You don't think that there's any
point.
of the performative fucking pressures from fucking producers and people who run fucking shops like Vixen or fucking Pornhub or fucking any of those organizations that they put on actresses in order to engage in dangerous behavior. This parallels so fucking neatly. I can't believe that you guys aren't seeing it.
I didn't see the parallel is because I was just thinking, well, advancement is when you have a better opportunity to get a job at a law firm. What are you going to get out of your porn job? There are different things.
What do you think when? Okay,
thing, but
I know this.
Different strokes for different.
No, I know this because somebody else told me about it, not because I'm actually aware of it myself. But what do you think it was when Brazzers runs a competition for the next top porn star for their institution, and then they engage in increasingly dangerous group sex acts in order to see who they're going to promote? What do you call that as far as power dynamics or social pressure or fame or money or network connections? It fucking analogizes perfectly.
Okay, so
that's why back down from your point.
Dude. First of all, here's my problem, right? Here's my problem is that we've entered in all these other institutions, or not even institutions, right? All these other aspects of life, and trying to equalize them with fraternities, right? I don't have to defend all these other aspects. I don't have to defend all of that, right? These all kind of just got dragged in. BDSM, I'm not part of the BDSM culture, unfortunately for me. But I'm not part of the BDSM culture. I'm not part of the porn industry. Once again, unfortunately for me. So I'm not going to sit here and start defending all these, right? To also defend my argument against fraternities. So again, back to saying fuck fraternities, which we got a long way away from, but we can talk about specifically those relationships. Yes, you can draw weird analogies between that and others, but we can
I think the point of drawing the analogies is just to say, look, sure, again, as somebody who didn't join a fraternity and probably wouldn't if this is what was required, and to be clear, I don't think that's required in all fraternities, but if it was, I wouldn't do it. But nevertheless, I think that it's fair to say, okay, well, why are we singling out this type of institution then if we acknowledge that this kind of stuff is a part of life in a variety of ways and relationships that we don't seem to have the same
it's not that. It's not for me, it's not that at all. What it is for me is that so I'm assuming that I'm debating predominantly lefties and progressives, right? Okay, so if somebody brought up all of their problems with porn, if somebody brought up all of their problems with BDSM sex culture from a conservative standpoint, it would map almost 1-to-1 on arguments as far as Bastiat said, and then all of the objections from lefties and progressives would be the same thing that I'm doing now. There can be rules. You can put in safety measures. There can be people who are in charge of it. BDSM relationships are not necessarily like power dynamics that are fucking evil or cruel. You can have all these fucking relational things. So basically what's interesting is that I think all of the lefties and progressives are more interested in banging and all the conservatives are more interesed in violence. And are we
on fucking Mars right now? Because in these no, I mean I'm like for real, because inside of these sorts of situations, hazing situations, how often are there people with smelling salts? How often are there doctors? How often are there all these measures that you were talking about before that you want to see? No, that's what you were saying before when you were talking about what your problem with.
Well, and I was talking about a fight club. I was talking about fighting.
Yeah, I know, but I'm and I think that. It's just
hold on. Let me explain because maybe I can clarify a little bit.
All right.
So for instance, I would think that so for instance, part of the hazing that I went in was not physical violence. As a matter of fact, even in training, you should never knock somebody unconscious or choke somebody unconscious. That can have permanent health consequences that are fucking horrible. Nobody should ever do that. Okay. Even as a part of hazing, being knocked or choked unconscious should never be a part of the thing. But what I would consider hazing, there's something that I'm familiar with. This will become the next meme of my Discord, is something called monkey fuckers. Does anybody know what monkey fuckers are?
No.
It's where you grab your ankles. Your fucking head is essentially between your fucking between your ankles. You literally grab your ankles and you proceed to do squats. I encourage anyone in the audience, because you will not hurt yourself unless you are overweight or have other physical ailments. It is basically a very, very painful squat. I would consider this hazing. And if you do 10 of them and you still feel fine, you're a fucking abnormal, athletic freak. I would consider that hazing that doesn't have this like horrific health or social consequences, besides the fact that maybe you're a little bit more humble, and on top of that you have a better like view of what your fucking taint looks like. Besides that, there's no real negative like long-term health effects.
You know, maybe one of the reasons why I'm getting so bent out of shape over the course of this conversation is because, to tell you the truth, I mean, like, I'm very blunt about this, and sometimes people are like, "Whoa, too much information." I've had a lot of like, I've just been unlucky with this. I had a lot of sexual assault in my life, not from anyone in my family, and I always throw that out there because I know that happens to be something that quite often it happens within the family. No, it was completely separate from that. So I've had that, and I've had a lot of. I started school a year early, so I was bullied a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of that shit. When I was young, I was always the runt until I was in 4th grade. And I actually started school a year early because I was smarter than most of the kids. And then I had to repeat the 4th grade because the like just fucking bullying that I received was so fucking horrible that I started being a really shitty student. So what's really bothering me here right now is and I'm hoping that maybe like people can just concede this, because it seems so obvious to me that all this stuff that we're talking about here is rude, and I do not throw BDSM in there. Maybe that makes me a prude, but I think that all this hazing shit and all this like consensual violent stuff that we're talking about, it all fits under some sort of bizarre need to like either be bullied or be okay with bullying culture. And I just think that that's something that is fundamentally psychologically fucked up. And I think that there's something that we as a society need to inspect more closely in order to in order to like hopefully not have this be a part of our lives for eternity. So I don't know. I'm sorry. It does get me very bent out of shape because of my personal past. But there you go. I just kind of like barfed out a whole lot of shit. So there you go.
So, I think that's a good place to break. Hey everyone, what's going to happen now is we're going to roll into our walk-on panel, our open walk-on panel. Okay, that'll be coming next. So the stream was not ending. Oh God. The stream is not ending. So stick around. We're going to replace this group of people with another group of people. Yeah, so I'm going to give these all these wonderful people an outro first. So we will start with, hold on, is the other person coming back in? Yep, that's LSP. All right, great. We'll start with my man Polar. Polar, thank you so much for being here. As always, we definitely appreciate you and your contributions to this channel, and just love having you around for these conversations, even though you were much too young for where this went. Sorry
about
that.
His fragile ears. Oh no.
Polar, thank you so much once again. Oh, and of course, during these closing these outros, you guys can respond to anything else. You want to have a final statement on any of this, feel free to do so. So Polar,
we're not doing topic 3. That was the best topic.
Sorry, we ran out of time. I definitely just
fuck you, Connor. This is your
LSP. You can talk about kids another
so
time. You can talk about kids another time.
Oh my God, that's true. That would have been so relevant because we got freaking Polar here. We're asking, basically talking about whether he should have the right to vote today or not.
Next week, for sure.
Next week.
Assholes.
Polar.
Yeah, I mean, I think I learned a lot from this convo. I'm definitely gonna go to a fraternity now. If that's what it takes to get a girlfriend in college, that's exactly what we're doing. Got anime GF, goth GF, whatever it takes, right? No, in reality, I think I laid up. I think there's some issues with fraternities that could probably be like fixed. I don't think they're something that have to go away permanently. That's for sure. I do see some utility in them. If you guys want to, go follow my channel. I have to be honest. The last couple minutes of that conversation, I could not relate to it all. It was very difficult, but it was still fun to be on here with some great people. So thank you for having me.
I hope you could not relate to any of that. Goddamn right. I'll have to have a conversation with your parents. But no, Polar, as always, Yeah, so grateful to have you around. And we're also grateful to have around our stream queen, Bastiat.
I really like that title, like the old song, like Dancing Queen. Stream Queen. I like that.
Tambourine. The first person to get
right on.
that title was our good friend Joe, the Silly Serious, who
Whoa.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
You know what? Honestly, I feel and I hope she's still in chat here. I feel honored to be able to take on the mantle of her legacy because every interaction with her I've had has just been a delight.
It's amazing.
So I will say this: this was a lot of fun. This was actually more fun, kind of, than I even expected it to be. This was a really interesting topic, and I really appreciate back and forth. Vadim, it was really fun talking with you, and it was kind of fun being on. Usually, we're on the same side on all this stuff, so it was fun going like on different sides for change. Same with Connor. Like, I guess usually we're on different sides, and it was fun being on the same side on a lot of this. Polar, it was really fun seeing you again. I'm sorry that I apparently I contributed to the deprivation of your right to vote by contributing to the deprivation of your right to argue why perhaps, I don't know what your opinion is, but I imagine you. Anyway, but it was fun seeing you. I really appreciated seeing KOE, who, again, I'm a big fan of. LSP, who drew me some amazing fan art in the background. I can't wait to share that. Doobie, who is apparently has lived some serious life experiences. And of course, Eris, I really enjoyed talking with you. It was a lot of fun. And folks, I hope you check out Eris' stream because I saw that she was plugged in earlier and doing some top tier jousting memes in the background. So be sure to give her a follow.
Someone
I dropped
noticed.
her link in the chat. Yeah, I thought that was fun. Maybe one of these days we can talk about the virtues or lack thereof of monarchy. So my name is Bastiat. It was a lot of fun being here. Prime, as always, you run a good show.
Wait, you're not going to call out
me.
Co? You're not going to... Dick.
Oh, I thought I did. Yeah, I was saying who I did. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He just wasn't listening.
I
thought you stopped at Eris.
He heaped your king of extreme with praise, sir. I mean, I had to absorb it like a sponge. It was marvelous.
Seriously. There you go, man. We got it. We just got to get that better connection. But anyway, so yeah, a lot of fun. Thank you so much, and thanks for letting me.
It's coming tomorrow.
Awesome.
Right on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for letting me ramble on in some different directions here.
Of course.
I hope y'all have a good night.
Definitely enjoyed it. Okay. Next, we have Connor. Connor Points. Thank you so much for being here as well, Connor. Even though I was razzing you before, I appreciate you. And when like that vein pops out in your forehead,
But isn't that like why you have me on? Is so I like almost die on stream every time? So yeah, no. My sincere pleasure. When something doesn't sit right in my brain, I like to call it out. I think LSP will admit that he made a few comments about like democracy and the Republican Party and all that kind of stuff that like I was literally like, I've never thought about that before. Let me think about that shit. And Vadim actually asked a question that I think is worthy of consideration that I'm going to think about for the next couple of days. So is all hazing rooted in the concept of bullying and bully culture? And I'm going to have to think about that because basically, even if I'm talking about the positive experiences like the mentorship and like, hiking or, silly little exercise rituals, I'm wondering if the social dynamic is still the same. So I'm going to be thinking about that for a couple of days. I'll give you my shower thoughts another week. But basically, my sincere pleasure talking to every single one of these people on here. I looked at the roster on the way to this fucking show and I was like, I am so happy I'm in a room full of fucking killers. Like it was super fun. If you want to follow me, then my name is Connor. I run a YouTube channel named Counterpoints. The primary things that I do talk about is actually violence and politics. So military, law enforcement, Warhammer 40,000, sci-fi art, video games. If something is bleeding and something is exploding and it relates to politics or history somehow, I'm talking about it. And then the easiest way to find me is find me on Twitter, type in Connorpoints, CONORPOINTS, CONORPOINTS. I will not be shouting myself out in chat. And if you're too fucking lazy to type my goddamn name into the YouTube search bar or into twitter.com, then I do not want you as a viewer. You phenomenal people have an excellent night.
Thank you so much. Next, Vadim, thank you also for stopping by. Glad to have you here. You kind of really came alive on that last topic. And yeah, we were happy to have your perspective.
I don't know. It was a little difficult for me because there were times where I missed some of the conversation. The internet kind of went out on me for little parts, and I don't think people realize that. But I don't know. I don't know how much else I have to say. I feel like I got kind of emotional, and I don't take that out on anyone here. I think everyone here is reasonably good people. Thanks everyone for joining us, and including the people who watched. But normally I'd be more animated, happy, and joking and plug myself, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I'm in like a weird headspace right now. I'll just be honest. So you can go to the next person. Thanks for having me on.
Everyone, please go check out Hey Steam on YouTube. He's got a great new video, and I'm sure you're gonna really enjoy it. So check him out. He's a superstar. People know him all around the net because of the quality content he puts out. So I'll do that for you, buddy. Moving on. Doobie, thank you for stopping by. This is one of your more chill nights, actually. Doobie. But thank you for being here. I always appreciate you being around.
Yeah, I just had to take a like a what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of take a seat and listen in, because honestly, like, the obsession with sucking the manhood out of masculinity, and worse, with shaming and gaslighting powerful men like Connor and myself for expressing our masculinity in somewhat violent and antisocial ways now and then is pretty gross. I just got to say, it's really hard out here being a Sigma male. I can understand why Eris would
Oh,
want
sorry, I hurt your feelings, Doopy.
I
I'm
can
so
understand why Eris would want to kind of feminize men, but hearing it from the betas on the panel tonight really irked me. So I just couldn't interact. That
Who are
being
the
said, I
betas,
had
Doopy?
fun. They know who they're. I had fun.
Yeah,
You guys want
true.
to find me? Discord.gg/politics, the greatest server on Discord. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
!Doobie in chat to get that link, discord.gg/politics. Yes, the politics Discord server. You are going to have an experience where you go there. If you're looking to argue with someone about something at any point in time in the day, go to the politics Discord server. If you're that type of person, then that's the place for you to be. Thank you once again, Doobie. Next, we'll go to Eris. Eris, it was really, really, really nice having you. I liked the points that you had, and it was a good tag teaming with you against Connor and Bastiat, and crushed them in their pathetic perspectives. But again, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. So I'm a history grad student. I like bringing historical perspective to modern issues. I don't like putting myself in a political box, so people sometimes call me a radical centrist, but I like to think of myself as a radical thinker. Okay, so you should follow me on Twitch, where you'll get to see me get way too competitive in games, play guitar, and having the most base takes ever. I also run Calliopean Club, an academic club that is inclusive and kind and inspires people to improve themselves intellectually. But yeah, Prime, thank you so much for having me here. I actually had a blast tonight, and I especially love BTFOing Doobie. Notice he is being silent in his
We
public
love
shame.
it too. We love it too.
Yeah, thank you.
!Eris in chat gets you the link for Calliopean Club. It's right there, because I don't want you to have to spell that. But when you do go there, you won't regret it. You can also argue with people there, but like, it'll be far more civil than the politics Discord server. So definitely check out what she's building there, and of course check out her channel, !S. Oh, sorry. Well, we can't do that, but I'll do it. Eris on Discord. There we go. Everyone follow her there, which I just did. Okay, next we'll go to LSP. LSP, thank you for being around. Thank you for always being ready to jump in and participate. Like, that's amazing. You're a fantastic panelist, buddy. LSP, tell the world about yourself.
Yeah, I'm LSP. I enjoyed the talk. I enjoyed everyone here. I'm trying to be a no bullshitter kind of person, so I want to spell this out explicitly for people who don't realize it. The reason Eris doesn't like the French is because she's a monarchist, and the French beheaded their last monarch.
True.
So it's a touchy
called out.
subject.
That hurts.
It's a touchy subject for her. My thought process for this was that first I thought this was going to be boring as shit, and I didn't like this panel topic, so I drew a picture of Prime with a really large forehead and Bastiat with really good hair. But then the panel topic became my favorite topic, which was great. So then I was happy, but then it went on so long that we didn't get to talk about what I really wanted to talk about. So now I'm really sad. So it's basically been a big disappointment. Rather than check out anything I produce, I'm going to link it in chat. There's a video by Jingles Science Lad called System Justification Theory. It's a very good video on like why people believe the things they believe or do the things they do. I think it's central to the debate we were having about whether people can choose their beliefs. It's a very good video. I highly recommend watching it. Also, Jangles is amazing. Subscribe to him. That said, give it over to the king, KOE Nation, Co Nation, whatever his stupid name is. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well, you were so close until that last part there. You know, folks, as I'm known to say around here and any other show I'm on, all that being said, thank you for joining us this evening for the Prime K panel, where we got into some of the great topics of the day with some of the best panelists of the day. Bastiat, thank you for being here. I owe you a service. Prime K, thank you for inviting me. I promise the next time I'm on, I will bring the full thunder. I will go Super Saiyan mode, so you will see full King of Extreme turned up to 11. But if you want to be able to follow me, KOE Nation on YouTube, on Twitch. You can find me at Revolutionary Wrestling Podcast on YouTube and Big Buckin' Empire on Facebook.
Yeah!
I'm also known to make...
Sorry. I got really excited.
On the Worldwide and Yanked Up podcast. Too big for one show. But folks, thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining us. Folks, raise a glass to yourself. And thank you for being part of this marvelous panel. And last but certainly not least, follow Prime K, the man of the hour who made this happen. So thank you. And with all that, I yield back to all of you beautiful people. Mwah, mwah, mwah. I love you all.
Thank you so much for that. That was unexpected. And KOE, it was so kind of you to join us here tonight. I really thank you all. Okay, so I will let you all go.
You,
we're going to roll into our walk-on panel right now. The stream is not ending. We're going to roll into our walk-on panel where members of my audience like you, yes, you at home, may join us. So we'd love to have you. Anyone here can join us as well. But if not, that's okay. Thank you for spending your time, your energy, your passion, and your knowledge with my audience. I know they appreciate it just as much as I do. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks, Prime.
Appreciate it. Catch you
Later.
Take care.